Listen to the song from the cold out of the beer next to Tonkin to here they said your mom is up for dead when the girls and all never got
Yo, hey guys, welcome to SmallmouthCrush Live, Monday, April 11th, with our co-host, Epic Eric.
What's up?
From, I don't know, one of his many houses across the country.
No, Western Maryland, man. Maryland.
Okay.
Deep Creek Lake, man. Looking at the lake, wishing I had a boat. I'll be dragging a tube around there on the shoreline tomorrow. Let's see if I can catch one. Smalley should be moving up, man. It should be in the cove, ready to go.
In the cove.
Heck yeah, man. How you doing?
What a brutal spring so far.
Oh my God, the weather is like cold front, bluebird skies, cold front. It's literally like clockwork. But you know what? We all got to fish the same conditions. So you can't make excuses if you can't catch them.
That's right. That's right.
I've lost my mojo. Got beat with a 4.93. I thought I was going to get big fish. Nope. Last couple guys, it's just been that kind of spring, man. I'm trying to break the cycle.
I was fortunate enough to have a few dates in the next couple of weeks. So I took all my guide trips for today and the next 4 days, actually, and was able to move them out just a little bit. We had all that rain last week, Friday, Saturday, like crazy. And I was down there, I think I was down, I don't remember, Thursday or Friday. And, well, you know where I keep the boat in that culvert. It was just gushing, dude. Chocolate and
man,
it was
they
bad.
caught him on the Potomac, man. 24 to win on the Potomac. Somebody landed a 9 something, and there was like 20-pound bags. I think Wilder's won back to back on the Rotomac, so they're catching them.
How do they do it,
man? I mean, you find the early grass, you find the bass, or I'm sure they're working channel swing banks, setting up outside of spawning flats, a little bit of rock, cranking.
Absolutely.
Low rolling a big spinner bait. Come on.
Well, let's welcome everyone. We got a lot of regulars here in the chat. We're gonna have a great show. This is sponsored, by the way, by Power Pole.
I know,
tonight's show. You guys know I love Power Pole. If you're looking for a shallow water anchoring system, they're certainly the company of choice when it comes to my shallow water applications. Plus, I got the Power Pole charge, man. And if you guys haven't experienced the charge, I'm telling you, I talk very highly of this product. This is my third charge system in my bass boats over the last 3 years, and I no longer have to worry about battery issues. I literally don't even have to open up the back to see if the lights are green anymore, because I know they are. Man. I can check my phone. I can look on the graphs. Everything's in sync. I love them. Guys, check them out, powerpole.com. And you just want to thank them for sponsoring this episode.
I'll tell you what, man, their service is legendary. I only had to use their customer service once. I called them up, man. They took care of me. They overnighted stuff to me. And, who am I? Nobody in the bass game. And they just absolutely took care of me. It's like legendary customer service. They really take care of their customers. So
heck yeah.
Yeah, I know you love that power system. Everybody who's got it says they love it, man.
I do.
Yeah, Scooter used it last year on the boat for the first time. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the boat we used for the first tournament didn't have it. And what do we arrive with? A dead
battery issues.
3 dead batteries right out of the gate. It went about 5 feet and stopped. And all the lights were green on it the night before. What?
Just your luck. Just your luck. Hey, we got to give a shout out to Jeff Vincini. Yeah. Vincini in the house.
Yeah, man. He's from Canada. Vincini Birch, for sure.
Alex. I guess he's back from paid time off. Alex is also in the house. We might have to bring him on and get an explanation why he ghosted us last week. Brian, John, Bo, Lucky D.
Rich Shackelford.
We got
Juice
a nice
Newton,
packed
man.
house already tonight.
Hey, Rich
guys,
Shackelford.
like and share if you can. Jamie Newton. I got
Juice.
fruit flies in here.
We call him Juice. What are you doing with fruit flies in there?
Jeremy, welcome.
Fruit flies?
David, Jeremy's new.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, I'm just checking, man.
I'm just trying to cover everybody. Jig
All
Squad
right.
Cuda, I know you called me today. I was waiting for a follow-up text, see what you needed, but never got that, so I just got lazy, bro. Got busy. Busy day.
It's a theme. It's
Is it?
consistent.
It is. Let's bring
You are consistent.
let's bring Alex on real quick.
AI in the house. Is
What's
he
going
man?
on?
Is
What's
he
up?
machine? What is he? He's AI.
I'm everywhere.
He know it, man. He was here last week. You just didn't know it.
Hey, I heard you got Matt on from Bass Talk Live on Bass.
I did
YouTube.
not do that, but yes, he will be on tomorrow night. From him and Peter, both at the James River that open. I think it's Thursday it starts. So I'll have Matt on. I'm sure we'll hear about that and whatever else he wants to talk about. Should be going.
Heck yeah. Very good. Listen,
Yeah.
we have a very cool show. I know last week's show was pretty amazing as well. A lot of great information. I got my my little Kitech bunch of secret swim baits as well as a bunch of A-rigs in the mail this week. So I feel the pain, guys. Those A-rigs weren't cheap.
No, dude. I'm gonna be
Jeez.
using them. I hope you got enough for me.
It ain't like a Flash Mob Junior, you know what I mean? But very high quality components. So I was super impressed with them. Actually,
Brown dog.
yes. Yep.
For
Got a
those of you
couple
guys who
ready
missed
to
that
go,
episode,
so-
That's pretty cool. I mean, I might have bought that Loomis rod. I don't know.
Oh, you weren't here?
I was.
Oh,
I
thought
said I
you
might have bought that Loomis rod. Did you
Oh,
actually just say I wasn't there?
for a second.
Oh my God.
He's losing it.
Those fruit flies are coming out of your brain.
Do
Too
they
much
all
blood
blend
there.
together? Give me a
That's
break.
true. A lot of time in front of the camera.
No magnifier tonight, Devin. Don't you worry, man. What's up, M. Jones? Brian Wisniewski. Big M's in the house, man. Marty Burns, crankbait
Nice.
master.
Welcome, Marty.
Marty.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. Listen, we had our guest on the SmallmouthCrush podcast. Oh gosh, many months ago, I guess mid last summer. I do have the link in the description below if you guys want to check that out. After the live, I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about a lot of the stuff that he covered in that podcast last year, but it was really great information. It's one of my favorite episodes because it really resonated well with some of the techniques that I like to use when it comes to smallmouth fishing. But I think we're going to get into a little bit of everything tonight, hopefully. So definitely get your questions ready for Jason. He's going to be coming up here shortly. I do want to cover a couple things real quick. Next week, we have Scott from Nico Baits coming back to the show. He's been on the program before. We're going to go through his lineup. He's got some new sneaky stuff coming out. And I know Eric got your gift pack, so you're definitely ready to go
Right on, man.
this time around.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Did you
And
want to
then-
go first? You want me to go first, or you doing it first?
The gift pack?
Oh yeah, you mean the one I'm throwing in for the sportswear purchase?
No, I said the Nico gift pack. Remember?
I got it. It's in the house. I had a panic attack because I'm like, where did I put it?
Oh,
And I had a bunch of Nikos that I bought just retail, you know what I mean? Like the Leeches special run and stuff. And I'm like, it's got. And it was right under my desk waiting for the show.
gotcha.
Yep.
Awesome.
Crazy.
25th, of course, we have the VIP members only. We're going to be showing you a way to get your JP secret baits. And before I go any further, we kind of hinted about this on the last live, and some orders came in already. I do just have to do this for housekeeping. Let me pull up my sheet. There's 3 names on this list: James McMullen, Michael Hammer, and Garrett. You guys sent in the money, but I have no idea where to ship those baits once they come in. So if you could reach out somehow, either send me an email, travis@smallmouthcrush.com, and just let me know your shipping address. We'll make sure moving forward that we get everything we need, because it's going to get pretty crazy here on that VIP live on the 25th. So we are going to be able to unleash that JP's secret bait that he was talking about and how to get them. And then I'm also going to be deep diving. I mean, full-fledged deep dive on how I fish during the spawn for smallmouth. Now, if you don't have smallmouth in your waters, there's going to be some tips that you can utilize when it comes to largemouth fishing as well. So if you haven't signed up, I know a lot of you guys are VIP members already. You can head on over to smallmouthcrush.com. And in the banner up top, you'll see the VIP membership. It's I think it's $10 a month, or we do a little special if you want to purchase for the whole year, but it just helps support the channel. And we're really able to answer every question and focus on making sure all the information that we're giving up on these VIPs, you can actually take out and apply and hopefully catch some big fish this year. So that is it on that home front. We are also going to be doing a little giveaway tonight.
I think I'm frozen.
You're all right, bro.
No, look at YouTube. Oh, I'm back.
You're good. You're good. All right, here's the deal, guys. We got the Monster Bass bag, but there's a bunch of baits in here. I want to talk about a couple special ones that I threw in. I teamed up with Missile Baits, and we have a custom color called, what is that? The TM Super Crusher. Black and blue. You can't get these anywhere except on this giveaway right now. Black and blue with some red flake in it. Can't go wrong with that. The baby D-bomb. I'm going to put 2 bags in the giveaway. I got some buffs. We got some X-Zone. We got some, I don't know, just a crankbait. We got the ARC TB115. You guys, this is very similar to a shower blow. I have used this. It does work. We got some Strike King products in here.
What kind of Strike King? Perfect
the
plastic?
Steel Shad. That's the Game Hog Watermelon Red.
Right on.
Good one.
We got a series. That looks like a Big Dipper, man.
We got a Series 4. We got some Lake Fork. We got Smallmouth Crush buffs. Dang. We got some stickers. We got some bobber stoppers. It's a heck of a little gift pack here.
Right on.
And here's what we're going to do. We are going to, and I got to apologize because I got some orders in this week for my merchandise, Smallmouth Crush merchandise. You can find it on smallmouthcrush.com. Anyone tonight who buys, whether it be a hat, a hoodie, a t-shirt from my website, let me know in the comments, and you'll be entered into this drawing at the end of the show. And we're actually going to be taking off the shipping fee for all of the merchandise. Well, probably for the next 7 days. I know a lot of people watch this. They're not watching live. They'll watch in a few days here. So if you do want to take advantage of that, free shipping. Listen, I know a bunch of guys bought product this past week that I shipped out, and I charge you shipping. But I promise you, I put a couple extra goodies in that box for you. So if you want to take advantage of that, listen, we got the hoodies right here that I'm wearing. Very comfortable. I love these things. You love yours, don't you, Eric and Alex?
I don't have one yet.
You'll get yours. Don't worry. Of course, we got the Smallmouth Crush, just a normal old T-shirt with the old logo. Very high quality. This is the Canva, the Bella. I guess those are good high quality tees. We got the Great Lakes edition for all you hardcore smallmouth anglers.
Nice.
The Great Lakes in the background.
That's a good one.
I also have them in long sleeve performance, right? There you go. And don't forget, if you guys are into flogging, right? This is a little inside joke. I think it's cool, though, man. I'm going to be wearing it when I'm kicking everybody's butt in Wisconsin next month with my flogger. Do you even flog, bro? Get your Do Even Flog hoodie. Smallmouthcrush.com. Free shipping. And you'll be entered into that Monster Bass tackle pack as well. What do you think?
Grant Looney wanted to know if it was Ohlone. Free shipping to Australia?
Except for Australia. Come on, continental U.S.,
else.
guys. You know
Free
the
shipping
rules.
to Canada.
You guys know the rules.
What about Canada?
Nah.
Uh-oh. Domestic only.
Anyways, you head on over to shop, you click that button there, and there you go. And why not? Anyone who buys a hoodie, a t-shirt, or a hat, this hat's are pretty nice too. Got the little logo on it.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna throw in the one of them Smallmouth Crush stickers for you as well.
There you
There you
go.
go.
That's the spirit.
It's a good deal.
Perfect.
There's not a code or anything. Everything's all set. You just check out and we'll get it out to you.
Love it.
Good
We'll
work,
make it
AI.
easy for everybody.
Nice.
Simple.
Why is this
Ready,
banner
man.
in the way?
Made it bigger.
There you go.
What do I got to do here?
Well, I mean, you got a little.
We
bit
can
more
work with it
realistic.
next week. You think it'd work in like the bottom left?
It might.
That way, when you have like 3 people on in the guest, it really only covers up like the bottom of the guest picture.
We'll
If there's
work on it.
4, it might be.
Right. They're right.
We'll
on.
mess with it.
Nick, the love's not gone for Canadians. We have an amazing Canadian on the show tonight coming up. Okay.
There
I
it
love you
is.
guys.
Look at that. Good
Oh,
comeback,
man.
Travis.
Kent in the house. Greetings from Mud Bay. I love Mud Bay.
Mud Bay.
Mud Bay.
Mud Bay. Mud
The
Bay.
walleye should be running in Mud Bay pretty soon.
That's right.
Oh, you guys are killing me here.
They are.
Hey, don't you have a little gift package as well, Eric?
Yeah. So a lot of people were asking about when I was going to release the super shallow crankbait professor pack. And so teamed up with TK Stanley for a couple customs. And if you missed out on the square bill June bug, there's going to be a June bug Timber Tiger DC1. It's kind of the 4-wheel drive of crankbait. So you're going to get a DC1 in either June bug or Tennessee shad, and then a DC2. So the 1 means it goes about 1 foot, and the DC2 goes about 2 foot. And the way these crankbaits are built, man, they are absolutely, you can crash them into wood and rock and come through snag free. Really creates a reaction bite. You can throw a crankbait where nobody dares throwing a crankbait. So a DC1 and DC2, OG -1. I got a little sneaky finesse crankbait in there. And the OG -1 is double stamped. That's first production run, made in the USA. You
Whoa.
can burn that bait. It's one of the best super shallow crankbaits ever made. They're almost impossible to find anymore. Got a little JDM special in there, and then another American made. Well, no, probably made in China, but produced and sold at a very popular bass fishing store, and it is one that works. Several are high pitch, meaning they've got either one rattle or multiple rattles, and 2 are 1 knocker super shallow crankbaits. I really like a 1 knocker and a square bill. These are deep thud knockers, and the action on both the other super shallows that are deep knockers. One is really tight, so it works pre-spawn when the fish get to the bank. And then once the water warms up, you get more aggressive action with the wider wobbling. So it's a great collection of crankbaits. I even threw some free stickers in there. And then for everybody that purchases tonight, I'm going to throw you into a giveaway for a special crankbait box. I haven't decided what that's going to be, but it'll be several crankbaits in custom painted colors by TK Stanley. So
Now,
3 crankbaits for the giveaway.
and how do we do that?
So Alex, if you could put up Bass Lab, the big cartel at Bass
Yeah, let me
Lab, they're
find
available
it.
now, and super limited quantities. So, I only got what I got. So these are hard to put together because of a lot of it's, from my collection. You're getting baits that have been at my house for a while. I have, stock that I have in my tackle boxes, but this is extra baits that I'm willing to get and sell. So there you go, man. Yeah. And TK, he crushed it on the June bug, man. So for tannic water, if you fish tidal or tannic or muddy water, there's a couple little special gems in there. So there you go. That's the super shallow crankbait professor pack.
Nice.
There
Now,
you go.
were you also going to give a little surprise pack to anyone that buys some merchandise as well
Yeah.
tonight?
So I said
There
that
you
on
go.
Instagram. If you guys were on Instagram Live, you heard me say it, but I'm going to throw in a Bass Lab sampler sticker pack. If you want to see what the stickers are on the Bass Lab site, they're all up there on the sticker section. They're Goonie Wolf. They're some of the best custom art out there, I think, in the bass world. They're dope designs. You'll get the new Tug Life one, the new Bassapalooza one, River Rat, Bass Lab, Legendary Lakes, and Dr. Krankenstein. So, and then finally, Rise and Glide. So I'm going to put together a nice sticker pack for the winner that they draw tonight. And so, Alex, if you'll share the address, I'll make sure I get the stickers out to the winner of the contest tonight in the drawing. So
I sure will. Sounds like a good plan. A lot of giveaways, a lot of good stuff going on. It's gonna be a great show.
Very good. So, Alex, you'll be in the background keeping tabs here as we go. If you guys do make a purchase, let us know in the comments, and then we'll get you in that drawing at the end of the show here. And here's what I'll do for guys that are watching this a few days later. I'm just going to randomly pick somebody over the next week that also buys some type of merchandise. I got a couple more Monster Bass bags here that we'll also give out. So you won't feel left out if you're not able to watch this live. I'm taking care of you guys.
Hooking it up.
Heck yeah. Well, let's see here. What's next on the agenda? I'm good. You good? Eric,
man,
you good?
Let's go, man. Let's get Jasan Gramada. I'm stoked.
Well, hold on.
Oh,
Not so fast.
We got another.
This is corporate now. We got to run a commercial before we get there.
Right. I forgot that, man. Remember back in the day? Show notes.
Hello, it's Smallmouth Crush. I want to let you know about a company I'm really excited about, Great Lakes Finesse. Whether it be highly pressured waters, clear bodies of water, doesn't matter if it's smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass, they have a great lineup of sneaky finesse baits, whether it be the snack craw, the drop worm, or this flat cat. What the heck is a flat cat? Hey, you guys know I love finesse fishing and catching giant smallmouth. So it was a natural fit when Great Lakes Finesse approached me to design a Smallmouth Crush approved bait. And this bait particular, the drop minnow, it's 2.75 inches. It has some amazing action, whether you're Ned rigging it, you're using a drop shot, or a technique I call hanging a minnow, Damiki rigging. Anytime you're fishing for suspended fish with a jig head, pair these two together, you're going to be able to catch those fish. It's an amazing technique. So the drop minnow comes in a variety of different colors. Of course, we got some meltdown or your chartreuse. We have a lot of natural colors as well. We have your whites, your smoke purples, your green pumpkin purple, whatever the case may be. I think we really hit a home run when it comes to the colors that are available with this bait. So I really feel like this bait is perfectly streamlined. It's very compact. In fact, I'm sure we're playing some underwater video. You can just see the action of this bait when it's actually in the underwater environment. So, hey, Great Lakes Finesse not only makes some great soft plastics, they do have some terminal tackle as well available. Head on over to greatlakesfinesse.com. Use my code SmallmouthCrush15, and you're going to save 15% off your order over at greatlakesfinesse.com. Well, there you go. Enough of that. Listen,
man,
honestly,
I can't wait to try some of those,
dude.
man.
It's so legit.
You gonna let me watch them on Panoptics with you, man? Eat it?
Maybe.
You gonna invite me to the front?
Why do I keep shrinking here?
I don't know, man. It's
just
because
can't
the
get
banner is now without Alex.
All right, enough is enough. Let's bring on our next guest, guys. Jason, welcome.
Welcome
up,
guys?
To the show. Welcome to the first live. Of course, you've been on the podcast before, and you got a lot of stuff going on, dude. And I wanted to talk to you about everything you got going on. Of course, you're up in Canada, but for those of us who are not familiar with you, Jason, if you could give us a quick little rundown, kind of your background, what you're up to, and what you got going here in the future.
Well, my day job, I'm actually the Canadian sales manager for American Bait Works. So you see the banner behind me, one of the hottest things out right now, bait fuel. Obviously, we got net bait, Freedom, Scum Frog, Snag Proof, Halo rods, set the hook baits all under our ABW banner. So that definitely keeps me busy. I'd say definitely more than 8 hours a day. But we all know, like all three of us here on the call, my true passion is bass fishing and obviously tournament bass fishing. So that's kind of my background. I mean, I grew up just outside of Montreal. So definitely not a huge bass fishing population as I was growing up. I mean, the sport's catching up to you guys down south and even catching up to the guys in Ontario a little bit here in Quebec. But, it's ever since I've been 6 years old. I really don't know where it came from. I used to go to hockey tournaments and to ask my dad every single body of water we passed, is there fish in that? Is there any bass in that? My dad's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But to this day, I mean, it's I'm just absolutely obsessed with it. So I love talking it, love doing it, just everything about it.
Very cool.
Nice.
Man, the comments lit up here. Set the hook drifter is unreal. What the heck's the drifter? I don't even know, but maybe we'll talk about
if you guys want to get into it, we could jump right into it. I mean, STH is basically a Canadian company. This Peter Savoya is one of the, I call him the mad scientist behind it. So basically, designs, builds the molds, and then hand pours baits as well. So it's a big part of American Bait Works and everything we've been doing. So,
Wow.
and we've on both sides of the border, we've teamed up because we own obviously Net Bait and Set the Hook. So you guys will see down south, there'll be like the Net Bait Finesse series, which is basically Canadian STH baits packaged and marketed in the States under Net Bait. Because obviously, building on Net Bait in the States is a lot easier than trying to grow a new brand for the American consumer.
Man, I've caught so many bass on the Net Bait Paca Craw and Baby Paca Craw. And for those of you who've never flipped it, if you take a Zoom double rattle, I'm just going to tell you right now, it is the loudest thing you'll hear. The way the bait's designed at the end, it's like a megaphone. It amplifies the sound of the double. You got to get the double steel ball rattle, glass rattle, shove that thing in the middle. And I never had any bait fiddle use, but I've heard good things about it. But a little scent on that stuff, man, and flip that thing around in tidal water, forget about it. You will get snatched.
Well,
it's won me some money. And
I believe it,
man.
Well, that's what's awesome about, Net Bait coming up here is everybody just knew about packet craws, right? That's kind of the whole packet technology. And then you realize that there's like a whole other world beyond just packet craws and packet chunks. So you guys were asking what a drifter is. It's basically a hand poured drop shot bait. So we have injected and hand pour. But really what put the drifter on the map is Lake Simcoe and ice fishing, believe it or not. So yeah, they started catching record whitefish and burbits and giant Lakers on it on some flatty jigs. I have some of those I could show you guys later. And then from there, it's just obviously Simcoe being one of the, smallmouth meccas of the world. It blew up from there. And you guys would freak out if you knew how many drifters we sold just around Lake Simcoe. It's absolutely nuts.
That's crazy, man.
I was actually sort of joking because I didn't want to bring it up, but the drifter, I got introduced by my friend Ed, who lives in Canada. He fishes a lot of events on the U.S. side as well. And I paired up with him as a co-angler. Oh gosh, probably 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 years. And that was an event. I believe it was like one of the windiest days on the St. Lawrence. It was a BFL 2-dayer, and I destroyed my boat on the way back to the weigh-in on day one. And Ed was there to help me out. He like came to my cabin. And I had a spare trolling motor. I'd ripped the trolling motor off the whole boat on the ride back. And Ed basically, gosh, it was a terrible day. But Ed went to work. We put the spare on. He stayed there till well into the evening hours to make sure I was back on the water. But Ed actually introduced me to that bait because he was out catching them like really good. And he's like, you got to check out this area. And this is an area I was familiar with. And I went out there and I could really not get a bite and I was struggling. And I'm like, what's the deal here? And he's like, you got anything with eyes? I go, what do you mean? He goes, dude, and he handed me a pack of those. There was like 4 left. It was very similar to that color that you just held up.
Lake Ontario Goby.
It might, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, man. God,
that was legit. Do you mind holding that up again for people? Because there's something special. Yes.
So you guys can really see the eyes on it real well there. And it's a flat bottom. It's obviously hand pour, so it's extremely supple. It's got a flat tail to it. So
do you think the eyes have something to do with that? I mean, it's got the right profile, but I always wonder, bass, I love putting oversized eyes on crankbaits. If I'm trying to custom make something with a guy that I work with, TK Stanley, I mean, he hates me for it because he thinks it looks goofy, not traditional on the top of the bait, but on the side. But I love it, man. I love an eye on a bait. And you don't see that on soft plastics a lot. Do you feel like it makes a difference, Jason?
So that's a great question. You probably would have asked me this 3 years ago. I would have said no until I started using, obviously I started with the drifter when I came on board with American Bait Works and started playing with them a little bit more. And where I really realized the eyes work is not necessarily only on the plastic, but with forward-facing sonar with live scope. I started noticing when, you were saying hanging a minnow or whatever, and I was fishing some of these baits with where the jig had eyes on it, and I was literally 2-3 to 1 out catching with it. Wow. And then I started dialing it back to the soft plastics with eyes on it, and then I started realizing, especially I fish a little bit further east down the St. Lawrence. So we were talking about that last time, Travis, Lake St. Francis, which is below the Moses Saunders Power Dam. and the fish get up real shallow on clear water sand, and they're not there to feed. They're there just to digest and sun themselves.
How about
And
that?
yeah, it's wild. You can literally watch wolf packs of, 5, 10, 15, 5, 6 pounders swimming together, and they literally will hide under your boat, just using you as shade. They are not scared of you at all. And one of the only baits I can actually, sight fish. It's not like Lake Ontario. You can sight fish and, get a fish swimming at you and you get it to eat. On St. Francis, I don't know what it is, but they're not using those flats to feed. And I started just crushing them on the drifter when I couldn't really get them to go on any other soft baits. So long-winded answer to your question, but I really do think on soft baits, eyes definitely in certain situations can help.
That's very interesting. I know there are guys that swear by like the snooty jig. I don't know if anybody's ever thrown a snooty jig, but I mean, there's dudes that like tell me stories like when they're swimming a snooty jig or, popping it through grass or snapping it. The snooty jig's got a big eye. And, most swim jigs don't really have eyes. And, it doesn't matter. I don't know, man. But I'm all about those little details. Some people say you geek out, you're looking at the wrong stuff. And I'm like, it makes me feel better. It gives me more confidence,
Right.
Hey, Travis, Lake St. Francis, isn't that up near Wills?
Yeah, that's we fish.
Right.
So Eric, you haven't really been on the main lake. You've probably seen it. We've been down that zone. We went largemouth fishing with what's his name? Roland Martin.
And Jimmy and Roland were up there.
Back there. We were very close to the lake, but you haven't experienced Lake St. Francis yet. We've been, for guys that don't know or familiar with that area, it's still part of the St. Lawrence River, but it's just another big body water section of the river. I fished some tournaments out of, and Jason, you might want to help me with that. It would be on the east end of Lake.
Akwesasne, or no, you came out of Quebec, out of Valleyfield, Quebec for one of the
Valleyfield. Yes. And then there's so much more to that. That's one of the interesting things, Jason, when I had you on the podcast and just learning about that whole section of the river. It was fascinating just hearing your experiences on it and how you fish it. And I definitely want to talk a little bit about that because we got some guys that are hardcore St. Lawrence anglers, but there's a lot of rivers like this across the country, whether it be Detroit River, St. Clair River, even up into Lake Superior and Lake Michigan, you're going to find situations like this. But, going back to like that section of the river, what are some of your favorite ways to target smallmouth in that zone?
Well, what I've used St. Francis to learn about a lot of bodies of water is if there's a lot of major tributaries, you have a really diverse fishery. And this goes back to being way younger and not really understanding all sorts of, smallmouth migration and stuff. But when you have some of these big tributaries that feed the St. Lawrence or any of these big bodies of water for that matter, the smallmouth, from what I've noticed, will use those tributaries for their spawning primarily. I don't know a lot of guys, they'll try to target main river spawners, and I'm going to jump all over the place here. That's where there's a huge difference from what I consider like the Thousand Islands section of the St. Lawrence River. And then when you go east to the St. Francis section or even further east is on the Thousand Islands section. There's really not many tributaries. You got the Gananoque River on the Canadian side. You obviously have Waddington. You have a couple of smaller rivers, but I mean, these can't hold populations of thousands and thousands of smallmouth running on them. But as you go further east and you look at how Lake St. Francis lays out, there's like monster spawning rivers. Like especially where Will's from, if you look at Akwesasne, there's like, you have the St. Regis, the Racket River. I mean, there is in the hundreds of thousands of smallmouth that must run up these rivers in the spring, but going further east towards Quebec, there's like 6 or 7 other main rivers. So,
wow.
What ends up, the reason why Lake St. Francis, I would argue, would be probably one of the best smallmouth fisheries in the world. And I can say that with confidence just due to we're talking like you catch 24 pounds in a July tournament and you're in like 8th place. Like it's wild. You don't necessarily get that top heavy 30-pound bags, but that 23 to 26 is, standard operating procedure for that part of the river. So, and what makes it so unique is the water's so clear. So you have that deep rip, shell bed, whatever you want to, zebra mussel deposits all throughout the river. So from Valleyfield, like 60 miles of river, 50 miles of river from Valleyfield all the way to Cornwall Dam. And then you have expansive sand flats. I'm probably going to throw you guys a curveball here, but if you could ever pull that up on like a Navionics or a Google Earth, you would freak out to just see the veins that are cut through these sand flats. So
Wow.
what ends up happening is you can fish them, and the water is just like Lake Ontario. It's gin clear. So you can get up on the shallow sand. They obviously have reed beds and all the stuff the smallmouth relate to. Then you have current, basically I call them canyons. Like it's these cuts where the river channel is just dug out over thousands of years of erosion. These
so
steep
crazy.
40-foot drops with caves that go underneath. It gets with an underwater camera, like there's caves that dig into these sand flats. And then you have your traditional deep humps, rock piles. I mean, it's funny, you know, your standard rock piles and stuff just don't seem to get fished anymore because everyone's looking for that deep drift or that shallow sand. But it is an incredibly diverse fishery, leaving the whole largemouth population aside for a sec. But you can go down the bank and throw spinner baits. You can wacky rig, you can drop shot, you can throw tubes, and then you can obviously drift deep, drop shots, whatever you want. So it's like whatever you want to do. Anybody who goes to St. Francis or that part of the St. Lawrence literally falls in love with it. I watch guys from what I would consider before better fisheries. Oh man, I can't wait to go to Francis. I'm like, really? You live in Kingston. You're right on Lake Ontario. Like, why do you want to come down here? But just the numbers of fish and the way they school is just a whole other deal.
How long are they there? Like, when do they show up in Lake St. Francis and those sand flatty kind of areas, shallow, wolf packy kind of stuff, warming their bellies? Is this like late April? And then how long do they stay?
Well, that's a good question. So we're very conservative up here in Canada. So we have a closed season entirely. So that's not true. So we have a small catch and release season that's been opened recently because of a lot of studies that have been done through Queen's University and Bruce Tufts up there. He's done amazing work for our fisheries. And they basically shut our season, and I could be wrong on the exact dates, but it's around the 10th or the 15th of May.
Okay.
So until then, you would technically, I would focus on the tributaries. Unfortunately, the tributaries are a different zone, so you're not able to actually go and follow them into those tributaries. So to answer your question, you would really start to hit the flats on opening weekend.
Okay.
But they haven't fully made their migration from the tributaries to the flats.
Wow.
So if you were to ask me, you know, we're going to opening weekend, we're going to go fish a tournament on St. Francis, I would be main river bed fishing would probably be the winning pattern if you wanted to try and catch a big bag of fish. And then within about 2 weeks, so about that first week of July, last week of June into first week of July, they literally swarm the flats. And that's actually one of the times when you can get them pretty good. Like you can get on a jerkbait bite and you can have some schools. Like I've seen schools before 30, 40, 50 deep. And like literally you think it's a patch of weed and
That's
you realize
great.
they get, I don't know if they do it elsewhere, but they literally get into like a ball, the smallmouth.
Wow.
And I've seen like 15, 20 of them like stacked in a ball, and you literally think it's a weed clump, and then you throw, and then the fish clump blows up, and it gets pretty crazy for a few minutes. But so I would end of June, early July would be sand, and then as you get towards the end of July, that deep bite really fires up, and then you're looking for twosies and threesies schooling on the flats, and you're not going to get those big schools anymore.
Wow, man.
It's a fascinating place. I mean, Eric, you've experienced it just a little bit. We mentioned a little bit about the largemouth fishery.
It's pretty stout.
In my memory, like, and I've targeted largemouth above the dam and all the way out through to Lake Ontario, but the largemouth are just huge.
Oh, they are, dude. What was that one that I caught up there?
I know.
That dirty
right. Almost. I mean, that had been pushing 8 pounds.
Crazy, man. That bag was legit that day. That's nuts, man.
Yeah, there's some giants, and I think, you know, we can get so far into this, guys. We could have this on for like 4 hours if we want to. But what ends up happening is there's so much water pushing through that system, and especially with the water we've had in the last few years, you know, coming through the Great Lakes, through the St. Because don't forget, guys, and everybody, you guys know it especially, but for a lot of the viewers that aren't really familiar with how that watershed flows, all of that water from all the Great Lakes are making their way right by my house through Lake St. Francis at some point.
That's crazy.
And,
wow.
You know, when you think about all those high water years we've had in the last few years, what's ended up happening is, unfortunately, a lot of the backwaters have become silted in. And that's a major problem for the largemouth. So as good as the largemouth fishing has been, I'm not a biologist, so I don't have numbers to back this up, but being an angler, sometimes we have a better feel for these things. I would say the largemouth population, unfortunately, is probably down by 70 or 80% on Lake St. Francis, especially.
Wow.
I mean, you used to be able to go in June into any of these man-made canals and just 20, 30, 40 fish, throwing a jig to some of those retaining walls. It was stupid easy. If you go into a canal and you catch 5, it was a good day. Wow. And the reason why I know it has to do with silt is a lot of these canals had 4 or 5 foot of water going right in. And now sometimes you literally have to almost push your boat into them. There's been so much silt. And obviously that screws up spawning grounds and, you know, has a, you know, a snowball effect on the fishery, right? That hasn't affected the smallmouth spawning because that water, that current is just cleaning the bottom, right? And giving them real good spawning habitat. But in the backwaters, it's wreaked havoc on those largemouth populations, unfortunately.
Very interesting.
So or there's somewhere we're not finding them, one of the two, but I think it's the former.
Yeah. So a couple of questions I don't want to forget or miss anybody here as we're going through here. But JP Harrell, he asked top color for that drifter in June, say on the St. Lawrence. What would be your favorite and what's like the best selling, I guess?
Yeah, great question.
So our best seller by far is LON Goby, is Lake Ontario Goby. It's got the lighter brown and the white belly. It's the color of the goby when they're babies. We also have a juvenile goby, which is a very similar color. If I'm not mistaken, and I should know this offhand, but I think there's 10 or 12 colors of the drifters. But what's kind of funny is I'm, going to go against the grain, and one of my favorite colors is a Hafakato, which I don't think I have one specifically here. I probably should have got one out. We have Smokin' Joe and Hafakato. So Smokin' Joe is like a black purple, and I'm not really sure why in the gin clear water it just fires them up early season. I can't really get them to go on St. Francis super well as the season progresses on that. And then your Hafakato, which they think is a baby perch, is kind of like a chartreuse green with a bit of darker hues to it. So I either go with a natural, an LON goby, or a juvenile goby, which is that brown white. And then I'll either go with a Smokin' Joe or a Hafakato if I'm just trying to throw something a little bit different.
I mean, they eat perch all year long, right? So what's your all year long color? LON?
Yeah, I love LON on the St. Lawrence, and anytime I'm lake fishing, anything with a smelty purple silver hue. Like when I spoke with Travis last time, I'm way more of a find the fish and then worry about the bait type of guy.
Makes
now,
sense.
I often will try to find fish, figure it out a bit, and then move on instead of dialing in. It's something that I'm always trying to work on. Whether I'm watching Bassmaster, MLF, I see these guys, I'm not going to throw a white chatterbait. I'm going to change the trailer to a darker color than the white. I'm like I'm just going to throw white, or I'm going to throw the color I'm confident in. These guys are obviously Elite Series, and I'm here in Montreal not fishing right now. But ultimately, I think for myself, it's what I have confidence in. And if I'm on the fish, I'll play with baits a little bit. But when they stop biting, I usually try to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, smallmouth seem pretty willing to bite. Not that I'm a smallmouth expert. I'm the least experienced right here on the screen, but they're pretty willing to bite, generally
for the most
speaking.
part.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's funny days too, like with large.
I wish we did have an early tributary season, as much as I'm sure it wouldn't be good for our fisheries because they'd be in such condensed areas. But a crankbait bite for brown water, smallmouth in the spring, I don't think you can get anything better than that. So,
man,
with that open season now, are you able to take advantage of that? Have you been out?
Unfortunately not. We literally, the ice just came off the river within a couple days ago.
Wow.
If I had lakes around home that we can fish, because keep in mind, our open season is only on a certain stretch of the St. Lawrence River. So all the inland lakes that I would love to dial in that early season bite are not open season. Like they're closed all the way until June. So,
wow.
And I was mentioning to you those tributaries. What I'd love to do in the next week or two would be to get where those smallmouth are staging right before they hit the tributary, because that would be a real scary deal. If you can get one of these main tributaries that have, 25,000 smallmouth that are about to run up it, and they're they're just waiting for that right water temp, that would be a crazy deal. But
Do they
Travis is such a big river, right? So
do they stage near the mouth of, like, the tributaries? Like, I mean, there's tons of rivers that are, off of Lake Ontario, right? Can you fish Lake Ontario now?
Yes, so you can technically. It only opened last year, our catch and release, our early season catch and release. So,
Okay.
Just with how our spring goes, you guys were talking a little bit earlier, how nasty the spring was. Well, we deal with the same thing. You don't want to go out with 41-degree water temps and it's blowing 25 clicks off Lake-O. It's not really the right.
Hey, I had a clear schedule this week, and I've been watching the forecast up there in Cape Vincent, just trying to break away for a day and launch in the U.S. side and head up in the Canadian waters, because this is a true fact, and I've never pretended to target. I've always waited till that third week in June to fish. I know a lot of guys don't. They like to be sneaky, and that to each their own, right? But I just it never resonated well with me to do that, so I never have. But it would be amazing if I could get out up towards, I don't know, pick a place, Amherst Island, Wolf Island, all that stuff.
That's what
that you can pick me up on the Canadian shore, right? Like 5 minutes past Amherst, so we can go figure it out on our own, right?
I know.
And if it's blowing 3 miles an hour, Travis, I'll come with you.
All right. It's
not
not
this
still
week. Be a bumpy ride. So
this would not have been a good week. I've tried. No. So Jason, one of the things that really stood out in that podcast was your use of an underwater camera. And I know we went really in depth on the podcast, and I encourage you guys to go back and watch that if you haven't. But can you touch a little bit on that? Because I know it's something that you really, I mean, just from having a conversation about it, like, I don't know anyone else that is this dialed in when it comes to using a camera. So I would love to have you just give us a little glimpse into that.
So just before we get into this, and I always joke saying this, I am not sponsored by Aquaview or any underwater camera company. It's something that I came across, and the story's kind of neat. So many years ago, I had a buddy of mine who got a gift from his parents, actually, an old Aquaview. I don't know, this must be easily 15 years ago, 12, 15 years ago. And we tried it once, and it's even longer than that. We dumped it in the river at one point, and it was spinning on itself. We were getting seasick looking at it, and we put it away for basically 10 years, like literally packed it up. This thing's a piece of crap, put it away, didn't touch it for 10 years. So at one point, we decided to pull it back out. And this is, I guess this would have been in 2014. This would have been July or August 2014. I remember because the camera ended up giving me a huge tournament win that September.
Wow.
But we got out and we dropped it to the bottom of the St. Lawrence, and we put a belly weight on it to keep it straight, because it was just spinning in the current. And the second it hit the bottom, I had a big smallmouth swim right up to the camera and stared, and I was like, "Oh my God, this actually works!" Wow. And then it was just one of those fluky deals where we happened to be where we dropped the camera was just stacked with smallmouth. So we were, "Oh my God, come over here. We got to look at this." You see muskie swim by and walleye and bass. So I was instantly hooked right from that moment. So unfortunately, I don't think I picked up a fishing rod for the next 2 months. What? And all we did was cover the bottom of the St. Lawrence River. And what it ultimately ended up showing me is what smallmouth live on and what they don't like.
Wow.
And smallmouth hate silt. They do not like a soft bottom. Even if it's the nicest looking little area on the edge of an island, if you drop your camera and your camera hits the bottom and you get a plume of silt, bring up your camera, put your electric motor away, and get going. And that would probably be the biggest tip I would give anybody if they were starting to get into underwater cameraing. And I've gone a step further. I've started using it now in inland lakes and stuff like that. And, it doesn't necessarily help as much for bottom composition because the river dictates where the fish will be. Where there's current, the current will wash the bottom and not allow silt deposits. And, where there isn't any current, or where the current there's areas, guys, where it looks like there's current. You're right in the dead center of the river and you'll drop the camera and there'll be silt because, 50 yards up, there was a hump that created some sort of a silt deposit behind it, and there's no fish there. So, that's really where it opened up my eyes. I realized like shell deposits, I hear a lot of these elite guys and a lot of the pro guys talking about shell beds and shell deposits on even lake rivers. I'm going back to the St. John's River and stuff, and that really opened my eyes in the last couple of years. And it showed me fish use shell beds anywhere they go. And I think it's just that hard bottom. They I don't really know the biology behind it, why they don't like silt. Is it because of their gills or whatever the story is? But where it really opened my eyes was in that. And then, as you do more of it, you understand more. You understand what's happening above the surface. Why is there silt deposits? You start looking how the water starts deflecting off of underwater islands or underwater humps. But as you figure that out, you can really start to call your shots. Like I literally, that year when I dialed it in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, like we were on a rampage in fishing tournaments on the St. Lawrence River because I would literally get home at night. Pardon? Sorry?
He said rampage, Travis. Like he's smoking. I love it, man. It's unbelievable, but you put the work in. Keep going, man.
So
what happened? So
everywhere we basically pulled up Navionics and took a look at, I would say there's fish there, and it was wild. Like I used to put waypoints on my Google Earth and then transfer it to my graphs, and I would literally catch fish on my Google Earth waypoint that I put at home the night before. Like I was calling the shots, that clearly, and that just evolved. And where it got really neat was I had a Tarova electric motor in 2014, and everyone was laughing at me. Oh, you got that walleye motor on your boat. And I was like, oh, my Fortrex is broken. I wasn't telling anybody that I was using Spot Lock, and I was controlling my motor with my remote control while I was cameraing, right? So we were able to do the sneaky for a year or two. And then obviously, guys, once the electric steer motors all started coming out, and everybody was spot locking. But it was awesome. Like we were finding fish. I would hit spot lock. I'd pull up my camera, get on the deck, throw out the drop shot, and catch a 5-pounder. Like it was crazy.
That's so cool. So that's like before all the Panoptics craze and everything, right? I mean,
yep.
Wow. Do you feel like Panoptics has replaced your camera?
Not at all.
No.
So so I got on board with Garmin last year. It was probably the best move I could ever done. I got myself 4 EchoMap Ultras. I got a 12 and 310s, obviously the 12 for the live scope. And it just made me a better angler all around, because the camera on the St. Lawrence River as you're moving really showed you what's happening. So you can get on these deep drifts and just follow the river down. What live scope showed me is how fish are reacting to baits. And then more importantly, how many fish follow our lure to the boat that don't bite. That freaked me out. Obviously the whole pelagic deal, the offshore deal, the suspended fish. But it was really, they complement each other. But on the St. Lawrence, for the most part, if you're drifting, you can put it on down, on your down for your live scope, and you might get a decent image, but you're moving so fast that, live scope, I feel like you need to really dial it in with the motor head. On the St. Lawrence, it's just too difficult to do unless you got a backwater area or something. In the fall, it's great when the fish do start to migrate to some of those slacker water, siltier areas. Then you can really put the live scope to work. But on the St. Lawrence, I'd still say for the most part, the camera will take lead over the live scope. On the
Very interesting. That's fascinating. I mean, you're blowing my mind.
I found that interesting. So you're saying there's some humps that could be anywhere in the St. Lawrence that you're out in 30 feet of water. And I'm just kind of backtracking here. Yep. A big hump. And because of that hump, you would think there would be fish, but directly behind it, there was some sort of, silt deposit. There's no hard bottom. And that's what you're finding in a lot of these areas. And that's why you use the camera.
Yeah, there's all sorts of whacked out things that happen with the current that I've learned. Like you can literally have I can't draw you a picture here, obviously, but you can have a hump, and then you can have an island that's, a couple yards up from the hump to the left. And the cross current coming off of that island, the way it's hitting the current coming over the hump, can create a massive silt deposit, or conversely, you can actually create a shell deposit. So even though there's no rhyme or reason to our eyes why there would be silt or why there would be shell, it can literally change what's happening below the river. And I was telling you guys last time, like I was fishing a big renegade tournament up in the Thousand Islands. It was out of Morrisburg, Ontario, across from Waddington, and I ran up towards Thousand Islands. And in and around the Rockport area, like in the middle of nowhere, I dropped my camera, and I'm like, no exaggeration, guys, there was 2,500 smallmouth on this stretch that was, 2-3 miles long. Like I literally for 20 straight minutes of cameraing was schools of 10, 20, 30 fish swimming everywhere. And I fished by myself. Unfortunately, the size, you could tell a lot of them when they get nervous and they swim quickly on the camera, they're a little bit smaller. I did manage to catch a 6.5 pounder in the school of small ones. But at a certain point, we just ran out of time. I think we had like 100 fish in 4 hours caught, and it was just stupid. We were having a little bit of a hard time upgrading. So with the camera, you get caught up sometimes a little bit on the numbers game, because they're sometimes hard to tell the difference in the size of the fish.
Fascinating, man.
I want to stress the importance of cameras and how much you utilize it. When you're practicing, you're pretty much using the camera. Is that correct?
Yeah, if I'm looking for deep fish, of course, it's 90% of my practice. I've had insane back spasms before, all cramped looking at my camera. It's been bad. But like when you're sitting behind your steering wheel for 8-10 hours, and don't forget, this is before I had a video in on any of my screens. So I had something that we would call the RDS. So RDS is there's so many stupid things that can be attached to this. But basically, when you go to a sporting event, and you see these guys with these big cameras that are filming a football or a hockey game.
Yeah.
It's this long, rectangular camera. Well, I would build this cardboard box that was like 30 inches long that would sit on top of the AquaView. So guys would drive by and I'd have this giant black box that my head was in because I couldn't see the camera screen with the sun reflection. So my buddies called it the RDS. So I had RDS version 1, 2, 3. I went to like version 11. So I wish I had one. I would have brought it. It was could have auctioned it off.
Man. So my very first
incredible
underwater camera probably weighed 25 pounds all in. They've come a long ways today. Now I think I have one that's almost the size of a cell phone, really. And, some of the tips, and we talked about in the past on the podcast, but putting that weight, whether it be taking some type of, I think with mine, I used a downrigger weight almost to get it down a little bit more in that current and fast and get to the bottom and hold steady and true. I think are most cameras now all colored, or is there still black and whites? I think all the
ones I've always had, apart from my buddy's first one many years ago, was a black and white one. The last few generations I've had have all been color.
But I've asked you this, and I'd like you to share it with the viewers here. As far as being able to tell the size of the fish on the camera, what are some tips there? Because when you put it down there, man, you see everything, but sometimes it's hard to determine, is that a legit big stud or is that a 2-pounder?
Great question. So that's taken a long time. I had some buddies who I obviously kept it hush hush, and then I could see them years ago, like when they figured out the camera, they were like, oh my God, they're full of 5-pounders everywhere. And I'm like, oh yeah, man, they're all 5-pounders because they're black and they look big. So the first telltale sign is if they have the lump on the forehead. The moment you see that little face with that big forehead, it's over 5 pounds, guaranteed 100%. That forehead lump is the telltale sign of a giant. I've seen some so big that the skin on the lump was starting to split. It was such an old fish. So what can really tell. I would assume a 7-8 pounder. Like,
holy, what is that hump? Have you ever talked to a biologist and say, what's the anatomy?
I don't know if it's the genetic of St. Lawrence or just the way those smallmouth grow, because they're not getting as long like some of those southern fish or lake fish. They're just, I don't know if it's just the way they're growing. Second telltale sign will be a split tail. So a tail that has kind of splits in it usually means that it's an old fish. Generally, when they're old, they're pretty big. And then the third sign is how slow they're swimming. When they're swimming quickly, they're usually, sub 3-pounders. When they got that waddle to them, they're usually a pretty big fish. Now, we used to always think the black ones were the big ones, and then you started seeing some of these really big pale ones as well. And that's where I would, they're little, and then you'd really see it swim by the camera, and you're like, I don't know, that would seem like a pretty big one, right? So there's we all know there's dark smallmouth, light smallmouth. They change colors. There's all sorts of reasons behind it, right? But Yeah, it's really that slow, meandering swim. The split tail and the hump on the head is really the 3 telltale signs I'm looking for some big ones.
Very good tips.
Just replying to some of these comments here.
Little sidebar question. Everybody keeps asking, what is bait fuel? I know it's a scent. I know it's clear. I know it's clean. It doesn't smell. But tell us about the science behind bait fuel, if you might, as a sidebar.
Well, bait fuel, so there's a lot behind it, and I won't get too far into it. I encourage everybody to go on YouTube and just hit bait fuel. There's like a 7-minute video, but I'll give you guys kind of the short and sweet of it. So years ago, he probably wouldn't want me explaining all of this because he's a pretty humble guy, but the owner of American Bait Works is not only a philanthropist and an amazing guy, but he really wanted to improve fishing in Canada and in the US to a certain extent. But he's a Canadian. He retired from his day job, and he said, like, I really want to, invest in the fishery. He wanted to, I don't want to call it sponsor, but just be an ambassador and somebody who obviously helped financially where he could in the fishing industry. And he did a bunch of grants to Queen's University in Kingston, to Tufts Labs.
Really?
To obviously do a bunch of smallmouth research. He's a main reason why we were able to do a bunch of research on smallmouth and the walleye of the Great Lakes and figure out what's going on. And they're doing a bunch of tagging at tournaments, and they're just figuring out, everything going on with the fisheries and how we can better it. And after years of investing into Queen's University as a side deal, they wanted to see if they were able to develop a true scientifically proven scent that not only got fish to bite, but actually can trigger negative fish. So fish that are in a negative mood. And after, I think it was almost 3 years of research through Tufts Labs, and then obviously the scientists that worked there, they were able to, and like I said, I don't want to get into the science of it. Guys got to watch the YouTube video. It is the real deal. This is not a marketing campaign. This is not it worked on one fish look great. They have thousands of fish in the labs that they've been working on. We have hatcheries that we've been testing this stuff on. But basically, bait fuel looks like this. Okay, so it's a clear gel. It's a true fish attractant. It's actually, so what makes bait fuel is it's not oil based. And I do not want to upset any of your viewers. I don't want to get into a argument here, but it has been scientifically proven that bass are not able to smell anything that is oil-based. So even if you have your favorite garlic scent or shrimp oils that you put on your bait, they actually cannot smell it. Scientifically proven in a lab, there is no way that their nose, they don't have the organs to actually smell it. They can actually only smell water-based stuff. So what they proved at Queens was there's a couple of different ways to get a bass to bite. And a lot of people say, well, my favorite craw oil works great. So what they figured out was that there's really 3 keys that trigger a fish. So number 1 is the visual appearance of the bait. So if you're a guy pouring bait in your garage and you got a school of fish that are on, I don't care if you have gas on your hands. If you drop that stick bait and that fish is hungry, he will eat it. So whether you put your garlic, your anise scent on it, or whether it smelled like fuel, that fish will bite it. The second factor, and I always kind of say the second one, but it really should be the third one, is the taste. So if the fish is on, bites the bait, and then it does have that garlic scent or that, or I should say taste or texture or oily texture to it, then that may have the fish hold on a little bit longer than a bait that didn't have a texture or a taste to it. But the most important factor is the scent. That'll actually trigger a fish that's not looking, a fish that's further away, a fish that's in a negative mood. And what they developed with all the amino acids and all the years of research they've done is they've actually figured out a way to have it in a water-based gel that'll actually trigger a negative fish. So it'll have the taste factor for the fish. It'll have the smell factor for the fish. And the beauty of bottled bait fuel is that you can put it on to any of the baits that you want. So I saw a comment earlier asking about Z-Man Plastics or asking about Yamamoto or whatever company you like. The beauty of bait fuel is you open up your pack, you load it the night before, And I don't want to name drop. I'm not going to be that guy. But if you watch the Bassmaster Classic, I think 4 or 5 of the top 10 were using bait fuel. Some of these guys, lesser known anglers, and there's stories out of the Classic where some of these newer anglers were fishing behind some of the best pros in the world. And it created a pretty big stink after day one weigh-in where some of these pros were going up like, I just watched Buddy on a dock behind me pull 3 fish off of it after I skipped it. What's the deal? So the biggest thing is it creates like a plume of scent around the bait. And where I noticed that it worked the best, and I can, like I said, I don't want to turn this into a bait fuel commercial here, but I've watched them on live scope, literally negative fish that I've caught 1 or 2 out of the school. And I put a bait fuel bait on, because I'll get to that in a second, because we also have all net bait and set the hook baits as of basically next month, all come sold infused with bait fuel in it now. Not only is it a bottled gel, but I've watched fish where I throw at something on the live scope and watch a fish do 180 and basically rip the rod out of my hand. I've unfortunately gut hooked smallmouth on drop shots where I've soaked my bait in bait fuel. I don't know if anybody's ever gut hooked a smallmouth before in a drop shot. On a wacky rig, one thing. On a drop shot, usually it's in the palate or in the lip. So to make a long and short of it, to make short and sweet, I should say, it really does trigger fish. And I think that's the biggest thing. A fish that's on, they'll bite anything to a certain extent. But when a fish is in a negative mood, it truly does make a difference. And that's what I like about it is if you're a branded guy under a specific company, you can put bait fuel on your baits yourself. And if you're not, they've proven that the injected, and this is like took years of changing our injection machines, because you can't just run bait fuel through an injection machine and have a soft plastic. So where we really killed it on the bait fuel and the injected baits is where you mix the visual cue and then you mix the actual bait fuel into it. So the visual cue that triggers the fish. I showed you guys those drifters, the flat-sided shads that are all from Set the Hook, all these new baits. Well, now they're actually coming with bait fuel cooked into it. So you'll see it on both sides. All net bait in the States will now be bait fuel as of basically May 1st or June 1st. And then everything in Canada under STH, Set the Hook, will all be bait fuel baits. And then you can obviously purchase bottled bait fuel. So I hope that.
So that big 55-gallon drum of bait fuel you got in your backyard, can you just fill up?
I bathe in it actually.
Listen, that's good. We like that because me and Travis are going to need like a 20-ounce Coke bottle each. If you could just send that down, I'd be happy to share anything on the Bass Lab. Travis will dab you up with some small, whatever we need to do, because sold out everywhere, bro.
Is it?
Well, I got something, again, I don't know how much I'd be saying. We have 90,000 bottles that are en route to Ocean Springs, Mississippi as we speak. So all these guys in the comments that are dying to get bait fuel within the next 5 to 7 days, all the retailers who bought it, and I would pretty much say almost every single retailer in the continental U.S. has bought it, will have bait fuel. And we'll make sure we get you guys a couple of bottles for sure.
We're going to wait to test
We're going to give it a try for sure.
We're going to test it against
Definitely
smelly
should.
jelly. We're going to throw we're going to get on a school of smallies, Travis, and live scope. I'm going to be shoulder to shoulder with you. We're going to drop bait fuel down. We're going to drop right next to smelly jelly, your favorite scent. And then we're going to drop down like a max scent. We'll just do a competition and see.
Right.
Absolutely.
I love it. And then
That'd
a
be
live
great.
goby.
And then a live bait. We'll see how that works.
All on camera. We got to have a Aquaview camera down. Have you could see him like Jason? I mean, have you ever had the camera down, seen the smallie, dropped your bait down, and a buddy watch on camera how the bass actually eats it? Because watching a bait in a smallmouth merge or a largemouth, I've done a little bit of it for largemouth, like spotted bass down at Lake Hartwell in the championship.
Yep.
I put a live scope on my buddy's team boat. We were down at the Bass Nation Championship. So, seeing your drop shot and seeing a fish come over, but it'd be something else to see on camera how they behave around it when you are giving it an action, popping it up. I mean, Travis has taught me a lot of tricks. You guys have to tune into the VIP to understand all of the secrets, but that Travis has. But anyway, have you watched it and seen what they do?
So unfortunately, no, because we have tried so many times, because you can't really turn the camera we're trying to spin the cable, the camera cable, because it's not a directional camera like your live scope, right? You can't just turn it, right? So, and we have thought of all sorts of ways to try to get that camera to turn.
That would be so cool.
Anybody has Clearwater docks, you get a painter's pole, you can actually put a camera under the dock and see what's under the dock. There's a whole bunch of ways. We've actually won a tournament on a lake here in Quebec where we were just cameraing under docks, looking for docks that were holding big post-spawn largemouth on it. And yeah, we blew it away pretty good. We just dropped the camera, had like 10 fish on it, and it was game over. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, we had some comments too.
Right now, like lake ideas. I've got ideas because
there's so much to do,
dude. Like
now it's
piles. You know what's down there. What's the key area of the brush pile? If you could improve the brush pile with just a little bit of, I won't say, but you get the concept, right? You could start to do some really interesting things with it, Travis.
Absolutely.
Ideally, though, I mean, really.
But it's time on the water, man.
I've had this question come up, and I try to answer it. Stained water, you're going to be able to see the bottom content at some point. I mean, you can drop it down there and see what bottom composition is, but it's tough if it's not fairly clear to use a camera, right?
Absolutely. So and you guys would have to do a test. I keep referring to bass because I was just watching it. So they were on Chick, and I was seeing some guys fishing some of that green clear water. So it could work in some of those situations, as long as you got like a 3-foot visibility. I think you're okay. It'll show you your bottom composition. It'll give you an idea of what's on the bottom. The second you get a little bit of that stain to it, its depth perception is really, really weak. Like you might get a few inches only in front of the camera. So it's really it really ultimately is a little bit more of a northern deal. Or like, I'm any of those reservoirs down south that are clear water, any of those spotted bass reservoirs and stuff. I mean, I think it would excel. Again, though, a camera will work less well if you're not in a river situation, in a lake situation. I don't know if the fish are a little more scared of it or whatever the story is, but with that moving water, they're a lot more, they're a lot more present. They're a lot more on the camera. But in the lakes, I've noticed we do see some fish sometimes, but it's a little harder in a lake setting to see fish. At least that's from my experience.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Very interesting thoughts. Very interesting thoughts. No doubt. There's some reservoirs I fish that are blueback herring lakes, and they're clear enough a lot of days to see what's going on pretty far down.
Well, that's it. And I'm going to use it in situations. So in 2019, before COVID hit, we actually fished the Pan Am Championships on Lake St. Francis. It was Canada, US, Mexico, First Nations. And I qualified for Team Canada to fish in the World Championships, which are taking place in Lake Murray this October. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're 10 or 12 nations that are going to be fishing, obviously for that gold medal. So we'll see how Canada can do down in your guys' home territory. But definitely things like, obviously live scope. We're very comfortable with live scope up here, and then obviously underwater cameras, some of those treetops and stuff. I think we'll probably be able to put some of that stuff to work for sure.
Jason, if you could, there's a private chat here. I put a question in there. I didn't want to say anything publicly, but if you could answer that, and that'll kind of direct the conversation. Yep.
So that's stuff. Yeah, so that's a good question. So Travis is bringing up one of my favorite ways to fish for smallmouth on the St. Lawrence River specifically, and I'd love to. I was really hoping this year to throw my hat in the ring for the Bass Opens. I wanted to go use this technique in the Susquehanna River for the first tournament. So hopefully, I don't know if there's any like off limit deals or anything you can't hear, but I wanted to use this on any of these smallmouth fishing. Because I ended up doing I was many years ago, I think 2011, 2012. I was a co-angler. I fished the Upper Chesapeake as a co-angler, and it was won by I forget what his name is. Kind of a little bit of an older school angler. He ended up winning on smallmouth. Yes, that's his name. So he ended up winning in the river. When I was hoping to maybe do those opens. I was looking for all sorts of deep holes in the Susquehanna River and seeing what kind of water was up there. But yeah, what Travis was asking me is kind of what I use to fish primarily. And one of the biggest tips I can have for anybody fishing a clear or a big river system is a football head with a creature bait. One of my favorite creature baits that I've ever fished, obviously, and I'm not shy to say it because, we can't just tell everybody the companies we use and the companies we work with because, you lose credibility. And one of the best creature baits I've ever used is a Yamamoto Flappin' Hog.
Hold up. I got to stop you. First of all, I cannot believe you're saying this.
I'm bad, man. I told you.
Hold on. No. We got to set the stage here, guys.
You're going to say for smallie or largie or both?
Smallmouth.
Listen,
yeah, okay.
let me.
I would have guessed Zoom brush hog.
Before we go any further, I want to make a couple statements. So when Jason
everybody owes Travis $9.99 and send another $15.99.
When Jason came on the podcast, we talked about fishing jigs, and he explained it perfectly, to the listeners as far as what he looks for and how he fishes it. Never did you mention, how like the bait of choice, of really your choice, and you kind of let that hang there, which we were fine with. This was uncharted territory. We were talking fishing and sharing some information. But one of the coolest things about these podcasts was after the camera shuts off, after I hit end on the live stream, and I get to hang out with guys like Jason and really sit and then hear the rest of the story, if you will.
And then go to Tackle Warehouse and spend $500.
Yes. So that's what I did. And this was in September, Eric, when you and I, when I brought these baits and the football head, and we went up on the St. Lawrence, and a little frustrating real quick. I remember we were in that red cabin, and I'm like, how in the hell do you rig these damn things straight? You know what I mean? So we were experimenting. We were laying them out. I just want, guys, this is the real deal. Jason, I'm super excited for you bringing this up right now. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it. That's why I asked you privately. If you guys, this is the part where you really want to focus here, and you're going to learn something when it comes to deep smallmouth, especially in current. So take the floor. I just had to set the stage. I'm
going to sit back and eat a power bar. Go ahead.
So that's what's neat about it. And just to obviously add a little bit more to that. So there's a little bit more to that whole Flappin' Hog story, because when I came on board with American Baitworks, the mad scientist Peter Savoya, the first thing he asked me is like, what are you getting all those big deep smallies on? And I told him, and he says, all right, well, we're going to need to do something about that. So before we go any further, I do want to show you what we have come out with from American Baitworks and Set the Hook. So we have our response, because at the end of the day, we came out with what we call the dragon craw. So it has very similar appendages. It's a little bit different. These are all infused with bait fuel in it. I'll get back to that in a second. You'll notice the big thumpers on it, and that's kind of the key to this bait, and that's probably the most important part to it. Now I've dropped the jig head, and I'm probably going to end up stepping on it. Oh, we're good. So the story behind this is we were trying to find something a little bit different to get these deep. Everyone was drop shot fishing. Everybody was, back then, I guess in 2014, it was tube fishing. Nobody was really Ned rig fishing back then. And we just started wrecking guys on this craw. And what I think is these big, deep St. Lawrence River smallmouth. Now, let's just say I ain't getting nearly the success or the bites fishing these in 2 feet of water or 4 feet of water. Now, that doesn't mean that I haven't had success doing it before, but it's not necessarily it just wasn't the deal really in the shallow water. So I really want to show you guys that jig head that I also had.
Yes.
I have the Freedom one that I switched to, but I wanted to show you guys what I went from. Anyways, I went from a traditional. So what I was doing, I'm jumping all over here. So what I had a football head, standard lead football head with a 4 or 5 on hook, and we were doing really well. But it was just part of the game that we were losing 20% of the fish we were hooking in a day. That was just standard operating procedure. They're going to jump. They're going to spit it. We broke off so many because that drag in those zebra mussels, that line just on the bottom, the amount of bites when we get bit, we just set the hook and that line would instantly snap. So over time, we started being like, man, we gotta figure something out. When I tell you guys, we left a lot of money in the St. Lawrence River. We left a lot of money, a lot of second place finishes where we lost by 0.20. And I'm like, dude, we broke off like 3 6s and 2 5s today. Like, it wasn't even close. Right. So At one point, we needed to figure out a way to change this losing ratio. I mean, the breakage, you can't do anything about it. So, and I'm like, Travis knows me now after this. I'll be going through a podcast, but like, if I'm not convinced, if I'm not 100% on board, like I won't try to sell it. I can't talk about it passionately. That's why I can go on an hour about bait fuel. I've seen it with my own two eyes, the damage it does. There's a lot of baits you'll ask me that I just haven't had a chance to test, and I won't get into detail. I won't bash it, but I just can't give much feedback on it. But so I was with American Bait Works for a year, and one of the brands under American Bait Works is Freedom Tackle. Freedom Tackle have a bunch of swing technology hooks. They've gone to swing baits. It's spinner baits. It's kind of what put them on the map as a company. And they had a swing football head. And me being stubborn, Jason, it took me a year before I decided to rig one of them up. I talked about it. I would sell them to stores, but I just wouldn't necessarily try them because, you know, what I did was a standard football head. It always worked. So what I ended up doing one day was this would have been over a year ago now. I decided to rig one up. And the moment I rigged up the swing free, so I'll try to show you guys a little bit. I don't know how good you guys are seeing. So basically it's a swing head. You can actually remove this hook. There's actually a whole mechanism on the inside. I don't know how well you guys can see it. And by the way, no fear, guys. I've never, ever had a hook manage to come out of the mechanism on the inside. Like literally there's no fish that smart or no way that they're going to get that off. But what ended up happening was when these fish would eat the football head in the bottom of the river and I'd get that hook in it, they never came unpinned. And when I say like, I'm talking like 95, 98% land ratio, minus obviously the breakoffs, the most frustrating breakoffs. You get a big bite, you set the hook and it just snaps. Mm-hmm. But once that fish came up and jumped, what ended up happening is they had no leverage to throw the bait. So that hook would follow the jump of the fish. And it literally would sew the fish's mouth shut. Like it would go through the mouth and then re-pick itself back in, to the point where I've been breaking hooks so hard trying to get the pliers to unpin the fish.
That's crazy.
And it changed everything. It literally changed everything. And I will sell this until there's no more available to sell. Anybody that is deep football head fishing, and I would go, if you're ledge fishing big swim baits, I would put this head. This is not just a craw type deal on the St. Lawrence River. Anybody dragging a football head deep, the hookup ratio is exponentially better than a fixed football head. And it's incredible. So the reason why I think these fish are eating these big baits on the bottom is because it's kicking up the shells as it's coming across the bottom. And they're probably, 50 feet away, 20 foot away, 80 foot away. And they are seeing this bait pop and bang on the bottom and kick up shells. And once they've committed, they literally crush it. They inhale the whole thing. Somebody asked earlier, I saw in the comments, what size. I personally was fishing at 3.75 inch. That's the same size as the Dragon Craw. I never really had success on the 4.5 inch flapping hog. Sometimes the stores would run out years ago and I would try to buy the bigger ones to fill it in and then I just wouldn't get bit. Sometimes it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it was the bait size, but a football head with a big craw on it is not a small bait. It literally fills up the whole palm of your hand. And from 2 pounds all the way up to 7 pounds, those smallmouth just take it all the way down. It's amazing.
So crazy.
I just want to say that interview that I had with you, Jason, from that point forward, and we had about a good, I would say about mid-October. So mid-September through mid-October, I did what you told me. And this is for deep water, drifts on the St. Lawrence. Man, I got like 50 packs of, and you know how much those Yamamoto and they tear up, right? It sucks. Okay.
It does.
Just fall apart. You're like, I think I might have got a fish. Look at it. And then you're missing half the bait. Yeah.
Oh, sure. It is definitely the deal. Guys, it is. So that's lead, right? But I mean, that's what you want. You want to make a bunch of noise. And here's the deal too. I just want to throw this out there. When we're talking with this technique, you're in a lot of current and you're ripping, right? Obviously you're trying to control the boat and slow it down to, I don't know what your preference is, 0.8, 1.2, somewhere in there, but you want to keep that bait going. And sometimes having that heavier tungsten head, sometimes you don't want that in those types of applications. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I really want a big head because I'm really trying to kick up the bottom. Tungsten would be great if you're just trying to figure out your bottom composition, but we've already eliminated that because we've cameraed the area. We know the fish are there. That football head, first of all, the cost versus tungsten. I mean, when you're losing multiple heads in a day, getting caught on rocks or zebra mussels or breaking off on fish, I don't know about you guys, but I really don't feel like giving the river 150, 200 bucks at jigs a day.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, I really just want to be banging into the bottom continuously and just kicking up shells and really trying to draw those fish in, because there's these really deep shell flats. One of the biggest thing, guys, when you drop the camera down, if it lights up like Hollywood, and it's all white shells on the bottom, whether you see a fish or not, there's fish there. Guaranteed.
Incredible.
100%. They love that stuff.
So do the crawfish get attracted to the same thing that smallies do? I mean, the shell bed just is a lot of life.
I think they think it's a goby, to be dead honest with you. I don't know how many craws are bouncing around shell beds in 1.8 mile an hour current. I could be wrong. There could be a huge population of them.
But
crazy? I think it's just
they're eating the
big
crawfish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
And I've tried big goby imitation baits. It's the appendages on these craws that are, like I said, it's when you really, what's amazing about the underwater camera is you'll have the camera spin and you'll see a smallmouth that were what you think is a smallmouth. I don't know how far away it is. And they will come darting up to the camera just to see what the camera is. So I can imagine they're doing the same things on these baits dragging across the bottom of the river.
I want to comment on one thing you said. You want a big jig head, a big head. You know, when the old school guys that do the ball and chain Carolina rigging, they love the big egg sinker, not small tungsten. They want to create as much disturbance as they can. Regular old school lead. Of course, they know where they're Carolina rigging, so they're not relying on tungsten to find hard bottom. They already know where they're going to go rig. But big lead disturbance, and it's round, rolling around. More disturbance. It's not bullet shaped. It is round. It's rolling around at the bottom. It's kicking up a lot of stuff, attracting the bass to what's behind the Carolina rig.
And I also want to stress, Jason, when we talked, you said that this technique, you know, late summer when they get out deep and they're in that strong current, you use the cameras, you're locating the fish. This is something even for tournaments and stuff, like this is the deal, right? This is like you talked to. We've had a lot of anglers on the show. Name's not catching me. We had some guys that are like big time sea riggers, right? That's what they're going to do in those situations. Or we got a drop shot guy. This is your deal, right? This is your go-to technique for those situations.
Yeah. If I'm fishing a big river, if I'm fishing a big body of water that has moving water deep, when that, don't get me wrong, guys, like, you know, fish will shut down. This is as important as this, as well as I've done with this bait or this technique, I should say. I'll still throw the drop shot. I'll still Ned rig a fish. I'll still drag a tube jig like 100%. I've had days, just to contradict myself, where, you know, they weren't biting this anymore. And then I threw out an STH tube 4-inch and then just wrecked my partner. And we're just like, really? But if I look at the overall, the football head with the cross style bait on the bottom is really my deal. And that's kind of where I came back when I was talking about the Susquehanna or other rivers. Right. I would love to try this on a bunch of US style fisheries that do not. We were talking about the Detroit River before. You were saying the St. Clair.
Holy moly.
Like, man, like I was watching, I forget, it was an MLF or whatever it was last year. And I was watching where some of these guys were fishing on the St. Clair River. And I'm like, man, I would get good real quick down there if I had a chance to spend a little bit more time down there, because it just lines up exactly the same as any other big Clearwater river, right?
Sure. Now, JP in the questions had a comment, exposed hook or Texas rig. And that's funny because when we talked even after the show, I never asked you that question. And so when I got these, I was kind of experimenting. Okay, do I take that? That's the what's it called?
The Freedom football head?
The component. What the heck's the name of those things? I should know this. The clips that hold the what's the
Parasite?
No, the simple name for that holds the bait onto the hook. Why am I
The bait
Screw
keeper,
lock.
The bait keeper, call it that. Yeah,
It's a screw lock.
screw lock. Yes,
Screw
okay,
lock.
thank you. That's what I was looking for. The screw lock. I'm like, okay, do I take the screw lock off of this hook and then screw it on and text? Like I even sent you a couple text messages of pictures because I really wanted to get it right. So, and after you explained it, I was like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. So obviously the screw lock on there helps keep the bait on so it doesn't tear, especially those Yamamotos. But then you are doing you are exposing the hook, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
man.
I want to get. So what I'm doing now is I basically did you put it through as if you were going to Texas rig it, have the hook come through, and then all I do with this Freedom head is I just spin it around the screw lock.
Yep, screw lock.
And then from there, I'll just pass it through, and you can either have it Tex rig if you want, obviously, or you can actually just have it right up the shank of the hook, depending on what you're fishing, and then have the hook exposed if you want. You can actually have it just ride right down the hook flat and have the hook come out as a standard exposed hook. Whatever you're more comfortable with, I usually just expose it.
Expose the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, that Dragon Craw, do you feel, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but do you feel that's more durable than that Flapping Hog?
It absolutely is more durable. And the reason why I'm so excited, especially for 2022 with the Dragon Craw, is because they're all going to be with bait fuel. And this is the type of situation. So I can tell you guys, not to get back into the bait fuel deal, but we actually watched, and the reason why I'm kind of going to tie this all in together is, so one of my representatives who sell American Baitworks products in Quebec for us, because I'm obviously the sales manager, I take care of Ontario, but I have a rep group that helps me out in Quebec because, can't do the whole country myself. He's actually a great tournament angler. He fishes against me on Lake St. Francis. And when we had our sample bottles last year, he had a big smallmouth. We were talking about one of those loner giant, like 6 1/4 pound smallmouth on a sand flat that was just sunning itself. And we had actually given out sample bottles of bait fuel to all the anglers just to try. This is in our first runs. There was no preservatives in it. We were just kind of getting some feedback. And he actually pitched a bait just upstream from a smallmouth that was on a flat. And he was already targeting that fish for like 15, 20 minutes. The second the bait hit the water, about 15 seconds later, that scent trail came down to the fish, and the fish ended up crushing his tube and hooking himself without even hitting the hook. So when I come back to my deep water fishing application, I can only imagine how deadly that bait fuel is going to be as you're dragging along some of those deeper shell flats. That scent is just going to follow down and maybe pull fish in from further. That's why I'm really excited. Plus the fact that I'm not going to be going through a $12 pack of baits,
my gosh,
every 17 minutes or whatever.
Right. We're dying that it's $8 down here, 12 up there. Oh my god!
Yeah, I tell you guys should buy everything from Canada. You guys would all be rich.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
What's the length on that? The Dragon Craw?
So it's the same size. It's a 3 3/4 inch. It's a 375. Yeah.
Okay, so Slump Grumpy, this is a great question, and I learned a lot. And I've after our little talk, man, I felt right at home because I go between bait casters and spinning rods, and when I'm dragging, and there's different applications. If I feel like if I'm in a shallow body of water, say 15 feet or less, and I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce jig to cover water, and I'm not in current, and I'm throwing like a standard football or the one I make for Beast Coast, and it's got skirt and it's got the beaver on the back, and I'm just dragging like you would a tube, I feel good on the bait caster with that 1/2 ounce. When I get to a quarter, I feel a little more comfortable on a spinning rod. So those applications, I go back and forth. I was really happy to hear that a lot of your deep dragging is done with a spinning rod setup. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and line and everything?
Wow.
Yeah. So basically I fish, we're obviously with Halo rods. So we have an HFX and a KS2. They're both 7 foot medium heavy rods. They're pretty stout. They got a lot of backbone to them. They have very soft tips. But really I like the spinning rod because I like to do the cross body hook set. So I go from, I'll often drag, I can't really show you guys in here in the camera, but I'll have the rod down closer to the water. So I forget who it was, Slump Gumpy, that said, it'll be on a pretty tight line, and it's just that bait's just coming across, and I literally have the rod tip maybe 12 inches off the surface of the water, and then when that fish bites, it just becomes like a sponge. Like often, it's very rarely is it a thump. You literally feel the fish knock the slack in the line. And then what I do is I come right across my body with a hook set. Like literally it's a spinning, flipping style hook set. Like it is as hard as you can come across your body with a hook set because you have so much drag with the current and the amount of line. If you're fishing 38 foot down, 100 foot or 75 foot from the boat, I mean, there is a lot of line in between your rod tip and that fish to penetrate that hook, right?
Makes sense.
Tight line, 15-pound braid is pretty much my go-to with a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. No less, no more. Any more than that, there's too much drag. The fluoro's too big. Any smaller than that, just the zebra mussels on the bottom of the river. Like I'm already breaking off, 1 of every 4 fish. So I don't need to be breaking off 3 of every 4 with a 10-pound lead. But nice long 15-pound fluorocarbon leader with 15-pound braid, 7-foot medium heavy. I don't want to go any longer than that because any longer of a rod, I know some guys like I got a 7.4 medium heavy spinning. Problem is the rod gets too long and then there's a little bit too parabolic and you don't have that same power. Any shorter than that, you have no give when you're fighting the fish. So you're kind of, with all the tests I've done, a 7.71 medium heavy, but a true medium heavy is the way to go.
Very interesting. How long?
Go ahead.
How long is your leader?
I go pretty long. I don't, usually 3-4 foot would be, I say pretty long. Some guys might have major.
That's really short.
Yeah. I probably go with about a 4-foot leader. And then I'm pretty, again, we talk about, I'm more of a find the fish. So sometimes it's burned me where I'm fishing with a leader this long and I don't really feel like retying and I'm still catching fish. So
it's amazing, right? I mean, if they're so attracted to it, it's not like, oh, there's the braid. They're like honed in on
No, it's I think they come bombing across this shell bed. And when they locked in, they just absolutely smoke it and they don't miss it.
So is your standard go-to? I mean, or do you step
half
up
and 3/4?
Half and 3/4. But what? Okay, gotcha. Just depending upon current depth.
If I'm having a hard time, and what's really weird about the St. Lawrence, and I'm sure Travis, you've had this happen a bunch of times. There's some days where half feels too heavy. And then there's other days where it's like, man, I can use 1.5 ounces for some reason. Like I can't feel the bottom at all. So I don't ever go heavier than 3/4 and I never go lighter than half.
I'm going to share something. This will kind of be funny here. I'm going to pull up a screen and see if I can do this.
Is this you losing your football?
No. Hold on. Let me find it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to now. I just wanted to make a point and prove it, but let me see.
In the meantime, I got somebody asking, is this any good for throwing it for spawning fish? That definitely wouldn't be my go-to because you don't need to go with something so big in the bed if you're fishing for bedding smallmouth. I maybe on a largemouth bed, it might be I see some of the guys throwing craws and stuff on largemouth beds, but for the most part, to me, it's really a cast and drag technique.
No, it's not going to work. You'll just have to take my word for it. So I have spreadsheets of all the rods and reels and line sizes and techniques I use. And because of your podcast, I do have 2 spinning rods here that I have this year, and they are the 7-foot medium heavy. I got 15-pound braid next to it. And then in the usage, it says Jason dragging a football. So it's right there. That's in my notes.
I'm honored, man.
Question is, as far as braided line, you're using 4 to 5 foot. I'm going to go with the high vis yellow. What's your thoughts on that? Can I get away with that? Is that going to give me any benefits when you're dragging like that, or with a moss green or white or whatever color you prefer be just as fine? Would you be afraid?
To be honest, I always use moss green. It's just my deal.
Okay.
I don't think the fish are going to necessarily see a high vis. I would only use high vis kind of if I'm watching for line jump or anything like that. And even at that, I mean, I haven't really had any situations where I'm flipping and again, as as I progress with my angling career, I might get into situations where I really want to watch. I don't know if I'm, you're bed fishing or whatever, and you want to see that fish, a largemouth pick up that bait without seeing it necessarily hit it. But for the most part, just as a confidence thing,
Okay.
I would think that moss green would disappear better in a clear water situation than yellow would.
Gotcha.
What's your favorite color on that dragon craw?
The favorite color on the dragon craw would probably be, a green pumpkin. Yeah. Again,
just green pumpkin.
I'll say it over and over. Green pumpkin, black flake. We've done tests where we've had different colors, and then at the end of it, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'll repeat it again. If I had the choice, I'd have 3 colors in my boat all year long. So
where's the best place if guys are interested in getting the Freedom heads and like where would you send them? Like, because a lot of guys are going to be itching to grab a bunch of these here tonight and the next couple of days. What are their best options?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the States, we have a bunch of retailers. I wish I would have had a list or something because I don't really take care of U.S. accounts. I'm going to be starting to take care of the U.S. accounts in the Northeast. I know we have a bunch of retailers, Tackle Warehouse. So we'll have Freedom Heads and a bunch of other key retailers. I don't want to leave any of them out because we have a bunch of awesome retailers in the U.S. side. On the Canadian side, Tackle Depot, you have any of the local shops. LamiSport.com has a great inventory. LamiSport.com. Canadian dollars, so your US dollar is going to go a long way.
Really?
There's pretty much most of the key retailers on both sides of the border will have them. And you can obviously, if you can't get them in any of those guys, you just go onto AmericanBaitWorks.com. We also sell to the consumer. It's a little bit more expensive than buying it. We obviously don't ever want to undercut our awesome retailers, but you can also buy it directly off of our corporate website as well. And then you have all the, we have somebody from Grimsby Tackle out here in Ontario that's online. He's got some in stock. Pretty much any of the good tackle shops will have it. And if they don't have it, they can pretty much get it for you guys.
Right on.
Wow.
Good stuff, man.
Pretty impressive. I didn't know you were going to go there tonight, man. Even before the show, actually a couple days ago, I go to Eric. I go, hey, we have Jason on. Here's his background. I said, remember that little deal we were doing up at Will's last fall with the flapping hog, and I'm like, I don't know if we can bring it up tonight, but I'll find out. So very good, man.
I'm
that was
Italian,
awesome.
man. So it was like omerta, the code of silence, brother.
Well. I've made a couple of boo-boos over the year. I love talking fishing and I talk way too much. So a lot of the reason a lot of the Canadian anglers have underwater cameras is because of my dumbass. A lot of reason a lot of guys are fishing football heads deep is because of my dumbass. So
dang.
Overall, we used to when we really got into the tournament scene, we were really ahead of the game from a lot of anglers, and I really still wish to this day it's something we would have jumped on board with. If you guys go on YouTube, you go to mtlbasspros.com. So that was all our old school. So we actually shot in 2009, 10, and 11 live on water tournament videos. We actually won the B1 in 2011 with a camera. We were stopping in between the fish, and we were really ahead of our time. And then I had a kid and my partner got went into a different job, and we just kind of ran out of time and just stopped. And I really wish we would have continued, but we were open book. Like everything we did after the tournament, we showed everything, and we really tried to be ambassadors for the sport and grow the sport. And, that's why I really appreciate, I watch Bass Live religiously because, having a way shorter fishing window here in Canada, I'm trying to absorb as much as I can. So once I actually do make that step, I can shave a lot of time off or as best as I can. And I really appreciate Bassmaster sharing a lot of what guys are doing. I don't care about the specific waypoint, but I'm always curious why he's throwing that in what situation, and I was watching Drew Cook, bedfish, and just learning so much just on what they're looking for, spawning and pencil reeds and all that, or lily pads, I should say. There's just so much to it. And I love giving and then obviously, taking back as well, right? When guys share a bunch of info.
That's good stuff, man. You are a great ambassador for doing it tonight.
Try to at least.
Yeah.
This was good. Hey, we're going to we're going to bring Alex back in real quick just to see if we have any comments that we or questions that we may have missed.
I'm coming to Lake Francis. I want to see some wolf packs.
Give me a call, man. You guys are welcome. If we can get out this summer, if you guys can squeeze in a schedule, you guys will freak out.
Steve Hardy had a question. What's the best way to access Lake St. Francis from the U.S.? I'm guessing here, but if it was me, I'd probably go up towards the dam there out of Messina and launch.
Yeah, so there's the overflow at Messina would be the furthest western point of Lake St. Francis. You're in New York. As you come, I don't know, maybe 3-4 miles down, you're then entering the Akwesasne Native Reserve, which is half Quebec, half New York Native Reserve. The other side of the river is Ontario, and if you head a little further east, you're in Quebec. So there's really like 5 territories on Lake St. Francis. It's truly
so
one of.
crazy.
I fished a lot of fisheries on both sides of the border, and it is still to this day probably one of the most unique, diverse fisheries I've ever been to in my life. But you can get there from pure U.S. water, launching right out of Messina. You're on homeland going into the water, and just buy your Ontario license or your Quebec license if you head down, and you can fish the whole entire river. By the way, Travis, just as a neat side note on catch and release.
Yeah.
So the vast majority of the fish, this is another one of these tidbits that I'm sure guys are listening and they're shaking their head telling, shut your mouth. But most of the fish were always caught down at the western end of Lake St. Francis, where you would have, all the Cornwall, the Akwesasne, the Messina area. And all the big tournaments, all those B1 tournaments were on the complete 50 miles east out of Valleyfield, Quebec. Well, all those years of catch and release, all those years of those live release boats dumping, I could say that if you're going to spend some time dragging deep, you might want to head a little further east because they didn't make their way all the way back west. A lot of those fish stayed down east. So I'll just leave it at that.
How about that? Wow. Man, fascinating.
What do you think, Alex? You get your underwater camera yet ordered?
I'm very tempted. I gotta do my budget though. I gotta decide between Freedom Tackle football heads, bait fuel, or the Aquaview. I can only buy so many things here. It's hard to make a decision.
I thought being an intern at SmallmouthCrush had some benefits, like you might get a thing of bait fuel.
We'll see.
He might get Travis's used Aquaview when he steps up to the color camera. And then, we certainly, now that we're getting the net bait dragon crawl, we're going to be switching to that because it's already got bait fuel infused and it lasts longer. So you can have all his flapping hogs.
Yeah, I might have a bunch of
man.
flapping hogs for sale.
I definitely don't use those at all anymore.
Oh, no, that hurts.
As a question, I just want to jump in because that's a good question.
Yeah.
Somebody said net bait purchased in the U.S. In Canada will have bait fuel. So just to clarify that, net bait you can buy net bait in Canada and it'll have bait fuel in it. But any of the net bait you guys are going to be buying going forward, they're actually in the process of injecting all the net bait as we speak with the bait fuel. So anything going to be available on the shelves in the U.S. in the next month or two are all going to be net bait fuel in the US. And then you're going to have the STH Finesse series, which you'll have those drifters branded under net bait. You'll have that flat-sided shad, which is that bait I was telling you about last year. So this is our bread and butter. This is our new bait fuel drop shot bait from Set the Hook. It'll be available through net bait as well. It's deadly.
Looks like
deadly.
a leech. That's crazy.
So it's a mix. It's a mixed in a leech. It's a ribbed bait. It's got a very pin tail with a fork on it. It's a hybrid. Yeah, so it's a hybrid. You can almost kind of see it. I don't know how well you're going to see the tail if it would stop moving.
That looks
Literally,
like the flat iron.
I'm not even
shad.
trying to move that. But.
Remember the flat iron shad from Yamamoto? The flat iron worm from Yamamoto. That thing was devastating. Oh, dude, that's pencil thin. Look at that thing.
Yeah, so, and they're infused with bait fuel. So, and the nice part about STH Plastics is something we're really proud of is they're some of the softest. We use some of the highest quality. And a lot of guys don't talk about that. There's a lot of grades of plastisol being used in the industry, and that's not to knock any companies, but there's a huge difference on grades of plastisol, and we use definitely the highest grade. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Bunch of questions here. Will the packaging show that it's infused with bait fuel?
Yeah, that's another great question. So here's a sample pack. This is an STH pack. So you'll see that bait fuel logo. I haven't seen the net bait packaging. These are the kind of doing that. So you'll see it says the bait fuel X55 formula. And then you'll obviously have a similar packaging, but that'll be branded Net Bait Finesse Series would be the US equivalent of them. Same baits, same colors, just for obviously marketing and sales reasons. Net Bait's real strong in the States, so instead of trying to rebrand STH, we just piggybacked on top of Net Bait success.
Hey Jason, if you have any pool, can you see if you can get a special run of Potomac Blue for the Packer Craw?
For the Packer Craw Potomac Blue?
Yeah, dude.
Reach out to me after. We'll see what we can do.
If you need some, if you're ever fishing open on Potomac, make sure you ring me up, man. If they won't make them, I got some for you. I got like a 500 pack still.
They stopped making them?
I don't think they make Potomac Blue anymore. I gotta check. I don't need to buy any because I got a bunch, right? And the baby and the regular size Packer Craw.
Yeah,
we'll do, man, for sure.
Zoom double rattle, Travis.
I just have this weird feeling that one of the Bass Opens next year is going to be on the Potomac. Something's just, I don't know why, but
that's my home river, man. That's my home river. I love that place. It's fishing good this year so far.
Cool.
Took 24 to win on Saturday. I mean,
wow,
that's strong bag, man, for largies for sure.
Dang,
not a milfoil this year. Mow grass, mow better bass, the right kind.
There you go, man.
That's right.
No doubt. Dang, got me wanting to go fishing right now.
Oh man, you guys have we're
jacked up, Jason. You got me all crazy.
Well, the nice part is the fact that I'm taking care of some of that northeastern U.S. It wouldn't hurt to bring the boat across the border when going to visit some dealers and go hit Champlain and go a little further south. And I can tell you the tournament I'm the most excited for this year is definitely the World Championships, though, in October. That's going to be
where's
that? Be pretty amazing stuff. I'm pretty excited. It's on Lake Murray in South Carolina. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
wow,
so it's in October, so I think the fishing will definitely be a little bit tougher, but I think live scope evens out that playing field a little bit. So
I think so.
You know what? I wanted to ask you. I mentioned this on the podcast. I know we had a few people early on in the show just had some questions. Talk about, because I'm fascinated. I love the St. Lawrence River, obviously. Talk to me a little bit about further east. We briefly talked about on the podcast, but you've dabbled a little bit there. I'm sure you're familiar with the area. I know at some point it's got to turn to saltwater. Talk me that story again, because it's pretty crazy how impressive the St. Lawrence River truly is.
Yeah, so obviously St. Lawrence River starts at obviously at Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario dumps into the St. Lawrence River. I could be off on my measurements here, guys, a little bit, but you figure you got about 120 miles of river from Lake Ontario to the Moses Saunders Power Dam, basically the Messina Cornwall dam that separates Canada and the U.S. Then you fall into the next part of the St. Lawrence River, which is the exact same water, obviously running down from the Thousand Islands, which will run, I think it's about 50 miles. So you'll have 50 miles of river from Lake St. Francis, or I should say Moses Saunders Dam, all the way to the Beauharnois Power Dam. So that now you're going to be entirely into Quebec water, into Canadian water. And then that dam dumps into another stretch of the St. Lawrence River, which is what we call the Lake St. Louis, Lac St. Louis in French. But what's really neat about Lac St. Louis is, if you guys have ever heard of the Ottawa River, it's a massive river that runs down from northern Ontario, which I blew my mind, just as a side note, when I started going to visit dealers in northern Ontario. So 10 hours north of Montreal.
Jeez.
And I caught a 27-pound bag of smallmouth in brown water as they were chasing these giant herrings, and we were throwing top water over 40 foot of water in literally 6 inches of visibility. 27 pounds. We caught like 80 smallmouth in 5 hours of fishing. It was
on top water, Travis.
That's crazy.
On top water. Yeah. On top water. God. And when I'm telling you guys are north, like we are talking wilderness, moose country, black bear country, like, small town, an hour and a half of, mid-forest driving, So anyway, So that river makes its way 8 hours southeast and dumps into the St. Lawrence River right on the island of Montreal. So the island of Montreal actually splits the Ottawa River and the St. Lawrence River. And then on the eastern end of the island of Montreal, you're back into the St. Lawrence River. So, and that ends up running probably about 350 miles to the Atlantic Ocean.
So that's not, there's no dam after the one on St. Francis on the east side. That's the last one.
That is the last. So on the Beauharnois Dam on the east side is your last hydroelectric dam. And then you might have a couple of there's a couple of locks and stuff because you get to some pretty big rapids as you go down the St. Lawrence. But that stretch now is a mixed color river because you have the Ottawa River is a brown river, St. Lawrence is clear. So it's really neat. You have a distinct water line right down the middle of the river that's brown and clear. And then eventually that mixes and the water is less clear in the St. Lawrence. Still green, but not as clear as obviously upper St. Lawrence water. And then you'll probably have about 100 miles, and there's a couple of bigger openings on the river. And after about 150 miles, 100 to 150 miles, you'll get into that brackish water, and you have like 15-foot tides.
What?
Oh yeah, it's wild. Like you literally have cliffs, you have tides. Yeah, massive, like enormous tidal tide fluctuations, and then you're right out to like there's an area in the St. Lawrence where you can fish for walleye and whale watch. As crazy as that is, it's pretty nuts.
Whales and walleyes.
That's
striper runs up in that area as well. Striper fishing is now retaken off there. So
that's one of my goals. I want to explore that whole, and that's a lot of land. I know that, but even all the way, that whole area, I would love to, even not fish, just to go see it. You know what I mean? Like it's a
whole other landscape. It's a pretty amazing spot. And, even for vacation guys, I mean, it's not in your native tongue. It's a lot of French speaking, but the people are awesome. The food is amazing. It's just an amazing area. It's a real neat destination. And then there's all sorts of other fisheries there. I mean, then you have your major, like what ends up happening out there is you have these massive Atlantic salmon rivers, which are world-class fisheries where guys are paying 10 G's to go fish for 4 days on rivers up for salmon. So
I wanted to ask you that. I have salmon here with a question mark. So when we were up at the dam smallmouth fishing this fall,
that was crazy.
The salmon were in there thick as heck. And where the heck are these fish coming from?
The ocean.
So they're stuck. These fish are stuck in the river. What? They're fish that have so they're obviously non-native to the Great Lakes, the Pacific salmon, obviously. Mm-hmm. So they're not Atlantic salmon, they're Pacific salmon. So they're Chinooks and cohos. And these salmons were stocked. And there might be guys on here that know more about this than me. I'm not a salmon guy. I know a little bit just about being from the area, right? But so they were all stocked in the Great Lakes. And then the fact that it's a natural flowing river, some of these salmon have just made their way down the St. Lawrence River. Like I've caught 25-pound Chinooks accidentally on a jerkbait before, like as wild as that is. On Lake St. Francis, yeah. I've actually caught a 10-pound coho flipping a mat.
What?
No word of a lie.
Come on,
no
man.
word of a lie.
Nobody's ever done that in their life.
Dude,
you're the only one that's ever done that. I guarantee it.
Dude, it thumped it. I set the hook. I was like, oh, I got a mudfish or I got a carp. There's a freaking salmon under a mat. Like literally, I'm not lying. It was wild, but
Can you imagine having that on GoPro? That would have gone.
That was crazy,
craziness. But we've and you'll notice as the fall of the year comes in, the salmon just become more apparent. Like I don't know where they are mid-year, in the spring and stuff. They're in the system. I don't know if they're pelagic, are they offshore, just in the shipping channel. I don't know, but you start to see them more run up, like you were talking about near the dam, where that current, a natural salmon. End of their life migration, you'll start to get them around. Like if you go, any of these listeners or you guys go fishing the St. Lawrence, anywhere there's a dam in September and October, you will definitely see salmon, dead salmon. It's just part of the deal.
Yeah, I tell you what, like that whole Lake St. Francis, that pool, that section has, again, we talked. I know you said the largemouth population is a little down, but the largemouth I've caught were huge. The smallmouth are huge. Yep. Muskies are huge. Like the walleye, you guys have a heck of a walleye population there. Like it's world-class fishing in that stretch.
Eyeballs, man. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
That whole stretch is nuts. It's off the chain.
Yeah. Travis, do you mind if I share my screen for like 2 seconds?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So everybody's going to freak out and understand exactly what we're talking about here. I'm probably going to end up just showing you all my spots, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, screenshot.
Let me try to share this. Let me see if I could share screen here. Windows. Okay, here we go. This should be pretty good. So tell me when you guys can see this.
Let me bring it on. There we go. Nice. Perfect.
Okay. So we were talking before about the Cornwall Dam. So that's the Moses Saunders Power Dam that you guys can see over here.
Yep.
The Messina boat ramp. Where's the Messina? Here it is. I'm a little bit all over them. Here we go. Messina boat ramp should be right here. So this is the Messina boat ramp right over here. That's your ramp in Messina right over here. Or right over here, I should say, somewhere right in here. Oh no, over here. This bay over here. But what I wanted to show you guys was the underwater flats that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So you guys will understand right away what I mean by Caribbean sand flats. So these are all these golden flats. So you guys can see the dark water rips, cuts through these flats. So these are all underwater channels that you guys can see in here.
Mm-hmm.
And all this yellow that you see on the middle of these veins, these are all shallow sand spots. And the whole river is loaded with them. Like if you take a look over here, this is all Caribbean sand.
That's crazy.
You can actually see a freighter. And as you go further east, you'll notice that the river then gets a lot bigger down here. And then this is the main shipping channel that you see over here. That'll then bring you to the Cornwall Dam.
Okay.
And then that's Lake St. And then now you're on the next basin. So you'll actually notice this up here on the left is the Ottawa River that's feeding into the St. Lawrence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So now you'll see the two colors actually of the water. You'll see that brown water on the top. And then as you go further east, you got a big set of rapids over here. These are some pretty nasty rapids over here.
Can you take up, so you can't get a boat through that?
No, you'd have to, theoretically, if you really wanted to, you'd have to take the St. Catherine's Lock, which comes through here. If you wanted to get down.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'll just zoom out to finish this whole thing off, and you'll follow the St. Lawrence. So this is all good smallmouth water up here as you keep going. Sorel, Tracy. Then you get to a lake called Lake St. Pierre. So you could see these islands over here. Again, all these cuts and rips. This is all great small. In the fall, 50, 100 fish a day, smallmouth days in here, easy. And then once you get down to about here, Quebec City, this is where you start to get some 8, 10, 12-foot tides.
What?
Which are really hard to see, obviously, on Google. But, these are all tidal. This is all major tide. And then last but not least, as you go, there's a river gets monstrous over here.
If you could predict, where would the last smallmouth be?
Last smallmouth would pretty much be Quebec City.
Wow.
Would pretty much be Levis right over here.
In that tide swing? In that tide swing? In
that tide swing. Yeah, you'll go from a rock pile that's out of the water that ends up going like 8 foot below the water.
That is so true.
And then as you go further, obviously, then you end up at the Gulf of the St. Lawrence, and then obviously the St. Lawrence River. So there's your kind of your geography lesson on.
Could you show me
Lake St.
Francis? Lake St. Francis. I don't have I've looked at part of it, and Travis and Will have pointed to it.
Can you bring that up one more time?
I'm sorry, man. I would love to see that.
Yeah, sure. Give me a sec.
I'm just trying to understand. And Travis, maybe you can point out where we were when you pointed left, and like that's Lake St. Francis.
So Lake Ontario. So guys, we talked about Simcoe earlier. Simcoe's up here, obviously, that big lake right in between. So here's Lake Ontario, obviously.
Yep.
So there's your mouth of the St. Lawrence River that we talk about. So you have two entrances. You have the north entrance and the south entrance of Wolf Island. Then the river comes all the way down through Brockville, and Messina's over here. So basically, Lake St. Francis starts right here in Cornwall, Ontario, and Messina, right where this line is. Yeah, I should say it really starts right at the dam. You have obviously the spillway over here, which is obviously some awesome. I'll shut up right now, anyways.
We know that area pretty well.
Yeah. I won't give up too much here.
So here you see the St. Regis. There's the mouth.
So
go to the right.
St. Regis.
So this is the name. This is where basically Will Clute and his buddy.
So that's our zone. You see that diving board right there, Eric? You know where that is on that point.
Yeah, I do.
So now So
I can
Lake
actually
St. Francis
let's
is
exactly go to the diving board.
You know that diving board?
There she is. Anybody want a good fishing spot in October? There you go. Anyways,
You do
let's keep
not know
going.
that diving board. You're kidding me, Jason. That's crazy.
No, I've only caught like 600 smallmouth off of it, but anyways.
So there it's right there, Eric. It's just straight down.
And then you go right. So basically starts over here at Cornwall and it runs. Technically, the lake ends in Salaberry de Valleyfield over here. Coteau, Lake Coteau. That's all your French words. I actually live. You see where it says Les Cedars right here?
Yeah.
That's my house. I'll show you guys
That's
where I
so
live. I live right where
nice.
my hand is. That's
No
right.
Really?
So this is
No
actually
way.
a separate basin
Whoa.
on
What's
the
that?
St. Lawrence.
What's
So
that
it's
discharge
closed over
there?
here. Yeah. So if you come back, this is St. Francis, and then the shipping channel comes down right over here, and that would be where you see it says Beauharnois, 132 right there. That's the end of Lake St. Francis theoretically.
Wow.
What was that discharge by your house?
That's just another. So this actually has a whole bunch of history. There's like an ancient native battlefield over here. There's a bunch of really cool stuff.
Really?
But yeah, so this is just big rapids over here. And
Okay.
then what's really neat is this whole river system has its own separate water retention basins. So you'll actually see like these are individual basins. So that's a big water discharge over here. No fish there at all. Don't ever go fishing there. And then you'll see there's a whole other discharge that brings you onto this basin. And then this basin over here ends up parallel to the shipping channel, which you see here. But this one's like non-navigable. Like you can't get out of these. There's boat launches. They're like individual lakes, but it's all St. Lawrence water.
That's so cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so unique. It's so different. It's it's wild. But I'm from here, so I'm just drawn to some of your southern fisheries. I was really excited to go fish the Chesapeake and take some of my different way of thinking and try things.
Sure.
It probably wouldn't work, but I'd love to, but it might, right? And I'd love to see. I'm attracted to these Tennessee River fisheries that I would love to see how the fish relate to current, and then all the. I mean, anyways, like we can go on for hours, right?
Yeah,
but
man, we could.
We're here, but I want to fish elsewhere, and all these guys that are elsewhere want to go fish where I'm from, right?
Sure, like Travis.
Neat. Very.
So
dynamic.
guys want to know, do you guide at all? Do you do any of that?
Not anymore. I'll help out my buddy, which is a guide. I can actually, if anybody ever comes up, I got a French-speaking guide, my fishing partner Nicholas. He gets along well in English, no problem. He guides a bunch of Americans every year. But if anybody ever wanted to, hit me up on Facebook or on Instagram, it's Breaking Bass Jay. You can find it. I can put you in contact with him. He's probably the best St. Lawrence River guide east of the Thousand Islands. He's one of these humble guys. I don't understand. We caught 60 fish today. It was a tough day, and he just doesn't understand how good he is, really. I'll never tell him that to his face. I tell him how much he sucks all the time. But ultimately, if anybody ever wanted a great guide and was up trying to visit you made a vacation with the wife and the kids to come to Montreal. The old port of Montreal is one of the most beautiful cities in North America.
Oh yeah.
And you get some world-class fishing and kind of do it all. So
delicious food.
Wow.
What a great city, man.
Yeah.
I was there with my wife, man. We loved it.
Yeah, Montreal's
Crazy.
a great place.
Truly.
No, we're only 5 hours from New York City, so we're right there, right?
Amazing, right?
Yeah, we're not far from anybody, really, right? A lot of people think, "Oh, you're up in Canada." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 5 hours from New York City. I ain't that
It's
far."
nothing, man.
Right.
No, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, we're not that far
beautiful,
north.
man.
The hardest part, the tough part, I mean, it is, you say 5 hours, but at the same time, when I hit Watertown and I got another 45 minutes to Cape Vincent at the mouth of the St. Lawrence, and then Will calls me and says, "Hey, let's go fish on my waters the next day," and drive 2 hours that way. And then you look at your map and you have all of this water in between there and then beyond. It's like, there's no way.
It's unbelievable. Literally,
It's
blew
truly,
my mind with all that.
It's
And
a
you know what? It goes
monster
to show
fishery.
too, the guys that can consistently catch fish out of this body of water, whether it be the St. Lawrence or this other section, Francis, like that's a pretty amazing accomplishment given the amount of water that's there.
It's a lifetime to learn.
And I still kick myself. And I guess it's just, again, I don't necessarily have that same upbringing or that same young fishing culture that a lot of, especially American anglers had, because the knowledge that I've had, like how I have not entered previous Bass Opens or FLW tournaments on the St. Lawrence. And I'm not saying I would have gone out there and beat these guys, but consistent finishes. I mean, I have just on St. Francis, I got 2,500 waypoint points. On the St. Lawrence, I have 5,000 waypoints, and it's guaranteed fish. It's not like other fisheries where it's like seasonally affected by, they're always there, right? They're always
so crazy.
There. They're always or in some sort of relation to that spot. And that's just, I still kick myself to this day that I haven't thrown my hat into some of these bigger derbies. And that's where I was going to do it this year. There's some things that came up. I'm definitely doing the Bass Opens, at least 3 of them next year. I need to scratch that itch personally. I mean, I love tournament fishing, and I've done really well in team tournaments. The house I live in was paid for by some really big team tournament wins and stuff. And I just feel until I've gone one more step, and I'm not trying to be an Elite Series pro, I'm not trying to make my living, but I want to fish 3 to 6 really high level events annually. And I still can't believe now I'm 38, turning 39 in July. And I just kind of frustrated that I didn't do it years ago. It's whatever. That's my issue. Right?
How many events can you fish on your body of water there? Like, is it every weekend? Do you have events?
Yeah, not every weekend, but now it's, a lot of guys, as Francis got more popular over the years, there's a lot more derbies on it. There's a lot more tournaments. The issue I'm having, guys, personally, is family time versus how worth it is it? And because we're from Canada, our derbies are generally, apart from Renegade Bass, which is some of the big, you have $10,000 first place. We draw an $80,000 boat on the Classic. So that's awesome. But the rest of the tournaments are, they're $2,500 payouts. There's 40, 50 boats, and a lot of guys that are just getting into tournament fishing. Don't forget, it's a clear water fishery. So when you can see them on a camera and with your eyes, you dial them in a lot faster. And a lot of these guys are saying, well, I don't do any big tournaments, but they spend 6-7 days of pre-fish for these $2,500 derbies. Wow. It's making it where it's not as attractive to me anymore. And I don't mean that in any form of disrespect to the guys fishing those events, but I feel like I've moved past a lot of those tournaments now. Like I'm going to go in there. I'm only going to have 1 day to pre-fish because I got a bigger tournament coming up the next week, and I'm going to finish in 9th. And was it really worth it that Saturday away to win nothing? Or you know what I'm trying to say, guys?
Sure.
Right? At a certain point, there's a lot of real small derbies that are making it not really worth it anymore.
Yeah, interesting.
So there is a lot of tournaments to fish, a lot of good ones, but not really anything worth actually putting the time and the energy in. I missed the B1 days, Travis. There were $30,000 payouts. We were finishing first, second, third. Every year it was. And I'm not saying you have to. It's only worth doing the tournaments if you're winning them. That's not what I'm saying. But at least that week of pre-fish, if you didn't do well, that's on you. But if you finish in 8th place, you still made a $4,000, $5,000 check. It covered your expenses. I don't want to do derbies anymore where I'm doing them just to fish another tournament. I'd rather spend some time with the boys and then, go do a bigger tournament the following week is kind of where I'm at.
Right on. Makes sense, man.
Dang.
Trying to balance it all out, right? So
it's, work, family, being a dad,
Well, guys,
career in the fishing industry, right?
Heck yeah.
Yeah. This was a good one. This was another,
dynamite, man. I'm fired up.
This is another good one.
Francis, Travis.
I got to apologize again, guys. Listen, I know we don't bring tackle companies on all the time, and this wasn't supposed to turn into that, but I know you guys are going to drop some coin on some of these techniques that we talked about. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
We're just talking about stuff, man.
But
got a free VIP live tonight.
Oh,
this was some good stuff, man.
Heck yeah. Good stuff.
I appreciate you guys giving me the platform, guys. I love talking fishing with guys, especially who know what they're talking about. And Travis, I've started to watch a bunch of your stuff, and just as I'm going through the winter blues, I love some of that.
Sure.
I was watching one of your Chesapeake videos and some of these marinas catching fish. I'm like, God, it's April. Why am I not out there doing it? But anyways.
Right.
He's had some battles. We've had some battles together in some marinas, man. It's been great.
I'm sure, man.
We broke a few off on some poles too, man.
That we do.
Yep.
It's almost go time.
You know, man.
I'm
Can't wait.
looking forward to getting out tidal water. It's Chesapeake, but I can't
He
wait
hates
till
it, Jason. He hates it.
I can't wait till July comes around and I get
Dragon craws in the Susquehanna, man. Just go for it.
I like your theory. I like your thought process on
I could
that.
be. I don't know how the smallmouth react up there. I had never caught one. I fished this crappy community hole outside the Susquehanna where we were like 18 boats casting whatever on a wall. It was outside of Furnace Bay or whatever it's called. It was the
Oh, we know
crappiest-
it. We know
Just
it.
standing
That's
on the back
actually-
of the boat. I wanted to friggin' die. It was brutal.
Listen, that spot, if the water wasn't moving so quickly and cold and muddy, would be loaded right now. But you're gonna have a tough time. I'm just assuming right this week at least, and probably next week catching fish there. I'm with you. The problem with me is when I guide on the Chesapeake now, I got to get clients on fish. I don't have as much time as people think to go explore. But if I did, I think there's some opportunities in the Susquehanna. We believe it or not, we don't deal with that too much. I mean, we got a couple sneaky things, but that river, there's miles of river there that I do not know. And it is kind of up, just like you were saying, it really fits into some of the fishing we do in other places of the country. It just doesn't happen. Eric, you agree with that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, Dave.
we just don't go there.
Man. He was throwing a 3/4 ounce jig, and he had
There's
to have
potential.
The right current. I mean, there's potential, but it's all conditional. It's what the flow is coming out of the dam.
Is it brown
right?
water? I'm assuming that river's pretty dirty, pretty dark.
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it can be clean too. I mean, there was jerk baiting up there on the elites, right? Greg Hackney was throwing a jerk bait in the middle of the summer. I mean, you don't talk to many people that throw a jerk bait on tidal water at all. In particular, in the middle of the summer. And, I go back to my days fishing with Richard Wader. We fished some team tournaments. He was a guide, and he smacked the shit out of him on a shallow running jerk bait. So, there's some rock veins up there. There's some ledges.
And does the tides, is the river affected by tides as well as you go a little bit upriver? Is that also
it's
fluctuating?
limited because you got that flow, that constant flow. But yeah, there is still little tidal influence. Our tide swings are only 2 foot.
On a normal year, it would be very hard to get past that last marina on the right with a bass boat.
True.
So you only have
it gets nasty up there. Okay.
You only have about 2 miles of fishable water before, well, maybe a little bit more.
What if you had a rock boat?
Sure. Oh yeah, there's potential.
I don't know if they'll let you have.
Remember, I begged for a rock boat in that.
I remember.
BFL divisional regional in the fall. Yeah,
I remember. Anyway,
awesome.
Interesting stuff, man. A lot of food for thought.
Dang. All right, listen, guys, we're going to real quick. We got to pick our winner. If you guys just joined us after the fact, we're talking about the merchandise on Smallmouth Crush. Right now, shipping's free, so we took off shipping, and we're going to throw in a couple extra goodies if you do order. We're going to pick a winner. I think Alex has one for tonight, but if you're watching the show later this week, if you do purchase from the smallmouthcrush.com website, your hoodies, t-shirts, hats, whatever the case may be, I'll pick another winner after the fact to get a monster bass bag. We got a bunch of great baits in this that we're going to be giving away. So, Alex, who do we got for the winner tonight?
Yeah, but real quick before I announce it, we do want to thank everyone that entered, bought something from the website tonight. It's a big help. You're going to get a good gift pack from Travis. Eric's throwing some stickers as well. We'd like to thank everyone again, but the winner of all the spoils tonight is Mr. Jason Frazee. Jason, I apologize for messing up your last name. I'm sure I said it incorrectly, but you are a lucky winner tonight. Thank you for supporting the channel, and we'll get all those goodies out to you soon.
He's got a great name.
Lives in Australia, Travis. So it'll be $180 shipping. So
yeah, right. We played that game before.
No, I played that game.
Yes, you did. Yes,
you donated. I think it was the shirt, and we got it to Cod.
Hey, good numbers tonight too, man.
Yeah,
I saw some strong numbers. We're it keeps getting crazier and crazier.
Oh, hey, real quick, Travis.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of the super shallow crankbait boxes left, so you're getting some custom painted Timber Tigers from Tacklecraft and a June Bug and a couple little sneaky JDM crankbaits, guys. So anyway, heads up. Just a few left. So if you're watching tomorrow, man, they'll be gone. But thanks everybody who ordered tonight. I appreciate it, man. It's one of my favorite things to do is super shallow cranking. And Jason, if you come down to Tidal, man, you got to have some super shallow cranks, man, depending upon the time of year. Got to have it.
Gotta have them.
We're in. And as always, guys, until next time, we'll see you on the water.